This is the University of Chicago Basic Program of Liberal Education for Adults, course, two-quarter course on James Joyce's Ulysses. Today is Thursday, February 6th, good. And we're doing the second half of the Nighttown section, the Circe in the brothel district. I'm Claudia Trout, staff instructor with the basic program and discussion leader. We are now recording. There, excellent, excellent. Here comes Ellen. Not Ellen, it's her daughter's, Pat's daughter's pad, apparently, so that's why her name looks like that, which I will fix. While Alex scooted out for a second, and we're off. Hello, darling Pat. So we can commence talking, and then our dears will get the tape when Pat signs in and when Alex comes back, John. So in sort of initial divings in, as we were just beginning to remark, into this second half of Nighttown, I was just laughing, realizing with that sort of scary Fellini-esque sort of movie feel that folks had remarked last week. And the sort of whirling aroundness of it, the speed and the dizziness of it. And I suppose in some ways, almost like nightmares or hallucinations, as you guys were raising. It's frightening. I mean, it's almost like the bottom of the world is dropping out from one, and sort of full of dreads and sort of terrors of things. Why did I smile so big when I said that? It's the savagery in me. But with some of those senses, even from, turn of the century, 1901, 02, 04, beginnings to be published into the world, Freudian things from Freud and Breuer in the interpretation of dreams, a kind of sense of things that are working in one and sort of roiling in one, or just taking one's attention in the course of one's waking life, one's daily life, operating and providing pieces and rebus or jigsaw puzzles or associations of things. And of course, what has so powerfully been working at Mr. Bloom all day today on the 16th of June that we've been with him? What are some of the things that have been working in his consciousness and gut and awareness, would you say? Big time things, and also smaller ones. Now you're muted, John, now you're muted.
Really thoughts of Rudy and Stephen kind of cross over each other in his mind, the sort of paternal instinct there. We've been seeing him deal with that, dating back to the hospital and, the women's laying in hospital or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And with having Rudy on mind, and then sonship and fatherhood and the lack of it, in a familial way, what's the other sort of layer or direction of connection that Bloom's having about relations and sort of genealogy and handing down and not getting to hand down? Who's another of the persons in that hierarchy or in that?
Oh, his father, Yeah.
Isn't that huge? And of course, we have the exchanges, the earlier one that we'll look at, and then the longer, harsher one with Virag, back with his old name from Hungary. And of course, what's tremendously roiling him over the course of this day and on his mind and everywhere else. Say it again?
His wife cheating on him.
Yeah, with Molly. It's like, cheating on him, Blazes Boylan, what's happening? Do I go home? What is it even like? Huge things. And these sexual transmutations that we'll be looking at, and in our terror and fascination talking about. Oh my God. Remember, there's we touched it a little bit as we were beginning last week, how part of the early vision of Molly, or the, what would you say, appearance, presentation, when she's in her little like harem outfit, scarlet and the little almost like toreador jacket and the bushy nice harem pants and the little turned up shoes, like almost picturing a cartoon. like the powder, puffed out like a powder pigeon that we were talking about, and ignoring him and being rude. And but I was just wondering, do you have that voyeur, right, that Jerry was telling us about, and that echo that we talked about last week, that Bloom in the daytime had that little, not thrashing and roiling about, but just had the thought, I dreamt of her, sort of in Turkish outfit last night, and when this is happening now, and he's like, pajamas, silk pajamas. It's like, I've never seen her in pajamas, would I like that? I don't know. And then that little rueful, I was gonna say crack, but I don't know if that's the tonality, observation. He's like, well, guess she kind of does wear the pants. Remember when he had that little thought or recognition, might almost be, about Molly. And then here's this visitation in the dream. And just by starting points those ways. Hi, darling Pat. I don't know if you can hear me yet, or you're just getting yourself set up, but just wanted to make you welcome.
Where are we right now, please?
We're just kind of talking at large. I haven't taken us to any specific page number yet. May we walk you through making yourself visible? Would you like to do that?
Yes.
Excellent. Yes. Okay. As we've been finding the ways, put your finger about your little screen of your iPad, and find that little place that says start video or something like that, and has the little drawing of the small video camera. And it should be right near where your little microphone icon, your little microphone image is, which you've just turned off. You just turned your microphone off, sweet. Oh, I can start that up, can't you? Thanks for reminding me last week, dears. I can bring that back up. Unmute.
Well, there's the camera.
Oh, okay, you've got the camera, Pat. Excellent.
Pointing at the
yeah. Now, Pat, good job, John, thank you. Now, Pat, all you need to do, dear heart, is tip your little tablet, tip your iPad, so that you can start to see, and we can start to see you. There you are. And you also now have to touch the little button that shows the microphone and unmute, so you can be heard again, right near where it was that you just touched to start the video. That's odd. I'm unmuting and it isn't happening.
I wonder.
I have the power. Why is this not?
Can you mute one of us? Try muting one of us, see if you still can.
Yes, I can try muting one of you. I'll try muting you, John, since you volunteered. Yeah, you're mute now. Unmute. Okay. And now you're unmuted, right, John? Talk to me.
Yep, I'm
okay. Why am I unmuted? Unmute.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah.
Now we can talk. What a good exploratory gang. Alex, what you're starting to say, sweetie. Welcome, Pat. Good to see your little sweet face. Excellent. And I had told the guys coming in, our dear Tom and his wife and his mommy-in-law who live with him all have the flu, so he can't be in with us tonight, but he sends his best, and that he'll listen to us on the recording. And you just disappeared again because you tipped your screen, sweet Pat, but if it's not comfortable to stay that high, do what you need to do to be comfy. Alex, were you starting to say something, sweetie?
No, other than there are just so many different things going on with the different characters in this sequence. I mean, I know it's a continuation of last week, but it feels completely different in a way. I mean,
doesn't it? Sort of the place where I had us pause. It's like, let's just breathe on this plateau for a moment before it just really starts to be a maelstrom in ways, and much more dramatic and much darker in a lot of the things. Say what you're thinking. You got to stop a little face.
I didn't understand it all, but of course the more controversial bits kind of stood out. I did understand those, and I guess it took me a while to see where the Bella, yeah, and Bloom started to they were sort of gender transposed. I mean, which was really sort of strange how that happened, but I didn't pick up on it. I guess it sort of gradually happens over a period of time, and I need to go back and look at sort of how
and by gum, in terror together, we are going to be going back and looking at it. Yeah, and it is subtle. And then you're like, whoa, with the aggression and then even the physical transformations. It's like, well, like Cersei.
Yeah.
Remember in the Odyssey, when she's first magically turning Odysseus's crewmen into the swine, and Bello in her transformation is almost like a living quasi-animal person with the hoofs and so on. And Mr. Bloom, remember, he likes the well-turned feet. He's saying doesn't like those beef to the heels. She's kind of porcine to the heels, and neither does Molly or Millie. But those damn, Bannon and folks down in Mullingar and not places, Buck Mulligan, frisky filly and beef to the heels. Like, them's fighting words. I dare say, Bloom or Molly or Millie would kill whoever said that, or kill themselves to be called that way. And I think you're completely right, and we will absolutely be taken our way on into that as the various characters, and then it starts being that intense and long exchange, punctuated now and then by another voice or one of the prostitutes or Lynch or somebody that we'll talk about for a minute. The gender flipping, the gender switching, and the harshness of what's going on escalate like crazy. Yeah. Isn't it interesting to see it come back out of that then too toward the end? I'm sorry, what was starting to say, sweetie?
Well, I mean, this whole sequence felt like it was all in Bloom's mind, like everything was going on in his mind. And so the humiliations that take place here, which are internal to him, in many ways are worse than anything we've ever seen in terms of sort of how he is looking at himself, portraying himself throughout this bizarre sequence.
Yeah, that's haunting. In those lights, Alex, thanks. Pat or John, any things that were striking you in that, or carry away from it when you were reading it, or in the light of what Alex was just saying? And then in a bit, we'll pulse our way through and to that, and then really all the way throughout to the end. But anything to speak to, John? Yeah,
no, I mean, one thing became clear is that it feels like this would have happened over many hours, but this is still. It's actually not that much time is going by. It's like these little flashes, like in a dream. How long does a dream last? What, maybe 30 seconds?
Yeah. That is of the REM sleep and so on. And the dream feels like 6 hours, and it's 30 seconds, 40 seconds. That's a haunting thing to raise.
Go back and read and try to parse out what is really happening. And, because there's really not that many things that happen. They arrive. She takes his potato soap or whatever it is.
She takes his potato. She doesn't got the soap. The little prostitute takes it from him. Yeah.
And then Stephen gets his money out, and he's like takes over the money situation.
Yeah.
Stephen throws a shit fit and flies out the window.
Huge shit fit. Yeah. Breaks the thing.
A lot of action that happens. Most of it's all in someone's mind, and I'm not convinced that it's in Blum's mind. It almost feels like another narrator has taken over here.
I wondered about that, and how it strikes to folks that some of it feels very located with Bloom in his humiliation and the terrors, the horrors, and of course how personal are Stephen's apprehensions, and then in a sense it's placed, it's cited in Mrs. Cohen's brothel, in a parlor, like you'd have a number of the places. And of course, picturing this is 1904, it'd almost be like in a Wild West, Miss Kitty's saloon in the old Gunsmoke TV shows. And so they are doing things about it. And when we were sort of talking about who's there and the like last week, and who sort of could not be, it's not possible, it's not real, and the characters that are inanimate objects that are talking, and the dog who takes on 42 different breeds, 42 different species. But within Mrs. Cohen's, Bella Cohen's bordello, who are some of the, when we're talking about not a lot big happens, I think it's real true, but who are some of the people who probably pretty certainly are there in her little whorehouse and interacting and doing whorehouse-ish things, down in the parlor type of whorehouse-ish thing. Alex, please.
Well, I mean, obviously Stephen, Buck Mulligan, and the others who were in the hospital could be there, but we know that they were heading in that direction and that Bloom was sort of following along.
Yes.
But his parents, Molly and Blazes, you know, Molly and Blazes could conceivably be there, but it's unlikely that they're there. Obviously, his parents and Rudy,
Yeah, they're all dead. Yeah, yeah.
And sort of strange animal person, you know, that we were just talking about. That has to be, you know, whether it's a narrator, as you know, John mentioned, which I had not thought about, or internally in his mind. Actually, today I just started reading this book called The Symbolist Movement in Literature, which influenced Joyce and T.S. Eliot and Yeats.
And Yeats, yeah.
Yeah, and so he talks about, you know, the focus being on sort of a psychic reality as opposed to the external reality. And I kind of feel like this is a psychic reality going on. It's either in Bloom's head or it's somewhere not sort of external in the outside world.
Yeah, it's not literalistic,
yeah, it's not.
But that doesn't make it not real. And that kind of is wonderfully brought up. Wonderfully brought up. As you were just framing that so nicely, the young girls, the young women, the young whores or younger, Chloe and Tiny and Zoe interacting with Bloom. Isn't it funny? Remember when she kind of feels up Bloom, you know, in the vicinity of his pockets in his general groinal area, and she's like, "Oh, you have a hard shanker," and he's like, "No, you know, one of the old words for a you know, lesion of venereal disease. No, it's my potato." And she takes it. And then later he's like, "I want my potato back." And then she gets it. And remember early in the morning when he was coming out of the house to go to get the meat for breakfast, and he's patting his pockets as one does. It's like, you know, your purse, your pocket, your, you know, your you know, jacket, whatever you may have. And he's like, "Don't have the keys, left them in the other trousers. Potato I have," remember? Mm-hmm. And we saw the little thing with his mama, Ellen Higgins, and praying with all the Catholic stuff. And the counsel to carry a potato like a good luck charm or a talisman against famine, you know, the Irish potato famine in the 1840s and so on. It's like, he's got the soap in other places. We also get little touches. Lynch, who had been in the lying in a hospital, is there. We learn from Bloom when he's talking to Stephen, which feels very real life, like he'd asked himself early, you know, "Why are you following him?" To himself, you know, "Wild goose chase this." And I think, well, but you know, he's worth not going to the dogs. And when he Bloom details to Stephen, you know, "That Buck Mulligan is not your friend. You know, watch out and keep an eye that, you know, he's tricking you and they ditched you." So Buck actually isn't there. He and in a literal way, actually there. When they, you know, like back in junior high or high school, when, you know, if one is kind of a mean person or in a mean stage in a given night, and you ditch some classmate or friend, person that you're not fond of, or that you're being the in-group, you know, clique that is going to exclude them, and, you know, sort of like jumped the subway railings effect on the trams in Dublin, and, you know, ditched him at Westland Row Station, and, you know, and then Bloom's like, you know, and they sort of led him too, is like, jump off, you know, where you don't have a high enough fare rating, and then could have ended up on a siding all overnight, you know, just left out on the wrong train going past the stations. And is like, you know, that Buck Mulligan is not merely not your friend, that is to say, neutral. But Bloom is registering he's pernicious, he's adversarial towards Stephen, which doesn't make it that interesting note, Alex, as you were saying, of the kind of poignancy and longing that Bloom feels and grief about the loss of his little Rudy, his baby son, and the kind of identifying towards Stephen. Mr. Daedalus talks really mean and scabrous, aggressive, as he tends to do. Is he with, you know, is he with that fetus Achates, that counter jumper's son? I'm going to write a letter to his aunt or whatever it is that'll tickle her catastrophe. But it's just kind of spewing. It's almost like a kind of anger and self-interest and showing off of, I am superior, we are superior, my family is da 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 da, ream that guy out. But Bloom is like, don't do it, Stephen. Please go ahead, dear. Pat, will you start to say something? Sound like your little voice.
I didn't, I'm pulling myself together.
Never a bad idea, particularly in this chapter. Thank you. Please, John.
Oh, just a couple things too. One, didn't Stephen and oh shoot, his name just went right onto my head. Mulligan. Didn't they have a confrontation? Like, it's not actually narrated, but it seems like there was a point where they were insinuating that they got into a fight in one of the bars. It wasn't actually stated, but it was like, I think it might have been in here, which means it might not have happened.
Right.
After, but it seemed like there was a confrontation.
I don't remember that, but that doesn't remotely mean that you've not cited something that went on. Please go ahead.
Oh, and then some of the other things was like, there's also exterior to the brothel, right, is mixed in with that girl from earlier from the park. Mm-hmm. I think that those two, the privates, are both real.
Yes. Oh, and boy, are they real. Yeah.
What's that, Keller? The guy that ends up taking him away, he's for real too, I think.
Yeah.
Corny Kelleher. Yeah. Good memory. Yeah. And when it comes back to that backside of it, oh, that's so wonderful to be raising the sort of, there are two cops and then there are the two privates, essentially, the redcoats. Mm-hmm. Private Carr and Private Compson. And that confrontation that happens towards Stephen at the end of it. Layer a couple of things as we're already in general arcing over or putting on the table. It's like, oh my God, where's it gonna go and where's it gonna go end? You know, in among all the scary gender changes and sexual S&M-ish creepiness and dreads, and then it sort of segues back out. Mrs. Cohen, Bella Cohen, you know, is the licensed proprietor of that whorehouse. And as usual, you know, would have plenty of cops who are patrons and clerical people, you know, religious people and big political people, and Bloom even uses it. And then segues back out into the genders that we identify, Bloom as being male, and Bella Cohen is no longer Bello. Isn't it funny to realize that with language, you know, and with the usages of how names are, you know, and how you spell them, how little or how much does it take to identify gender or change it? Just change the ending vowel, Bella, Bello, you know, and also because those are actually not just Latinate words, they are Latin words. I mean, Bella, you know, it is most of the time beautiful, and bello is the word in Latin for war. But when you get to, you know, ascribing it to a proper noun, there's just that. So I had a hazard guess, Joyce loving to think about and play with and transmute things. You know, I don't know, you could have picked Tommy and Susie or something for the names of Bello and her two states or something. But, you know, but that it's just that one little change happening there. So, and comes back out. And as we were putting on the table early of, whoa, things at work, you know, the little whores dance, you know, and there's a piano that Stephen is playing, the pianola, you know, as the chaos really gets going when Stephen, you know, melts down, Alex, as you were saying. And of course, what among many things, and once Stephen is in this night, this late, and in this place, what vision begins to assail him again and completely triggers him into that screaming and thrashing that breaks the chandelier? His mother, his mom. Ghoul, corpse chewer, let me be and let me live, wham. And after seeing Mr. Bloom so dismantled early, or almost like, you know, transmuted past recognition and into horror, he starts recoalescing. And of course, how does he then interact with Stephen? Really pretty much from then on. Yeah, but taking over control of the money and you know, bargaining down Bella Cohen when she's claiming that Stephen owes a ton of money, and really capable. And outside, when you know, Stephen is really drunk and out of control, blabbering, and the two soldiers, the Private Carr and Private Compton, you know, and eventually, of course, what literally happens to Stephen when he's out there with the soldiers?
I think he's punched or beaten up.
He's punched. Yeah. He's knocked stone cold out. He's unconscious on the ground. You know, and Bloom steps in on that and the like. And the Corny Kelleher that you were bringing up, of course, how does this work? Sort of, what is, if you want to put it that way, what is his day job? You know, with what firm and what kind of enterprise does Corny Kelleher really work?
Isn't he the grave digger, the ditch?
He's the funeral director, essentially. No, so he gets the hearses or the funeral, you know, carriages and arranges for the burials in his daytime. And when, don't you find it interesting, when Mr. Bloom is trying to sort of diffuse and calm down the angry and belligerent soldiers and trying to, you know, chat him up, hail fellow, well met, how good, over the course of several hundred pages already, how good is Mr. Bloom at that kind of schmoozing with these Dublin, you know, based hail hearties? Not the best, but he sees Corny. It's like, oh, well, now here's the man, and calls Corny over. And how does Corny Kelleher interact with those couple of pugnacious soldiers?
I think he got
good at it.
Put it away pretty good, didn't he?
Yeah, he put it away really. Oh, you know how it is, and it's kind of funny. It's like, you know, well, back in the Odyssey, you know, the sort of gift of the gab that Odysseus has. Mm-hmm. And if the sort of grown-up Bloom is the somewhat Odysseus figure, he may not be a master of that kind of talking, but he knows he's not, and can, you know, secure somebody who is, to effectuate the deed of getting Stephen rescued, essentially, out of that. And the oh gosh, those last few visions, as we'll talk our way out, ending, of course, within this. What is the last thing that or being, I guess I should say, that that Bloom sees as this ends?
Rudy
in his little outfit and reading right to left, you know, like the little guy already knows Hebrew. And Rudy, oh, please.
This whole episode is kind of like a crazy tapestry woven out of fragments of things we've seen earlier, you know, where it's a, you know, Shakespeare shows up and you think back to the whole discussion about that, or the citizen shows up, or even if I was wondering about the nymph, is that related to the painting?
Over the bed.
Yeah, over the bed. I mean,
yes.
So, you know, all these people and objects and discussions kind of are woven in a very bizarre sort of way into this tapestry of psychic whatever.
Yeah, very much. And it is very bizarre, but in its measure, you know, the imagings of it and the contents of it and things are traceable to a degree. I don't mean like tight, but because of what we've been immersed in all going forward to get to this point, you know, it's like, whoa, you know, wild and crazy guys, like those old characters, you know, performed, what was it, Martin Short and Steve
Martin.
Yeah, Steve Martin, and some of the other SNL guys. You know, you can kind of recognize it, as you're saying, and it's like, well, you know, this really kind of is, this really kind of is the witching hour and that kind of stuff. It's the dead, dark middle of the night, you know, and little echoes, oh dear God, little echoes may come there too. So name it Circe, of course, or the echo in the schema from the terrifying transmogrifying in the Odyssey story. And then, you know, then it comes out, all right, you know, you know, with the help of the god, Odysseus doesn't get changed and the men come back. But the sort of realness of the stuff, and as I say, it sort of is the witching hour and the dead dark middle of the night, as we were pressing or touching a couple of things of what it's like. I think I might have said this last week, but I don't know. It partly is coming from what you just said, Alex. Almost like a Walpurgisnacht, you know, the sort of night on Black Mountain or something, a kind of witch's night and dead low center of things. And you guys might have, and this is funny because of course, you know, the conversation between Homer's Odyssey and Ulysses, as Joyce wrote it, is big and strong and, you know, declared even. But of course, so many other pieces of literature or culture, theater, you know, statuary, paintings. So it's not, if you will, named here. But what I just had the little ring of or shot of, as I was saying, sort of the dead, dark middle of the night. In your travels, if folks have, I know at least some of you have, and Alex, you may certainly have too in your own reading or school days, ever read or had some of the sense of Dante's Inferno, that, you know, the Divine Comedy, the arc of the whole thing, of course, starts in the Inferno and then Purgatory and then heaven, the celestial realm, Paradiso. And it's a journey downward, spiraling down through all the, you know, the seventh circle of hell, kind of deal, sixth circle, and, you know, terrain, geology, if you will. And the worst of hell and where Satan is at the dead bottom middle of it. And all the things we think of, the heat and the stenches and the horrible noises and things. And down at the very base and bottom in the Inferno, where Satan is cold. It's bitter cold rather than hot. And Satan is embedded up to his waist in whatever it is. You only see the upper half, and with three horrible mouths and things. But the way that Dante starts the poem is out on the surface of real life. What is, you know, in a dark place, in the middle way, in the middle of the road, in the middle of my life, in the middle of the woods. And he begins to be, you know, like a real person, like Dante the poet, walking, and begins to be confronted by three terrifying beasts one by one. And then an intercession by this wonderful woman. And we realize Beatrice had interceded with the Blessed Virgin, with Mary, the Mother of Christ, in heaven, to ask to send help and get that guy turned around. So, you know, in the middle of the way, in the middle of the dark woods, in the middle of my life, within our book, within Ulysses, who could that sound like it's applying to? Those states of being and condition. Doesn't it sound like it could be Bloom with the kind of...
Yeah, reading this reminded me also of course, this is a later novel, so I should say it reminds me of Ulysses. This section of Ulysses was the sort of weird dinner party scene in a novel called Master and Margarita.
Oh, Jesus, God, yeah.
You know,
the Bulgakov, yeah.
The sense of what happens at night is almost in this other dark dimension, you know, that there's all this bizarre sort of stuff happening in another dimension.
Yeah.
These characters. So I kind of feel of that as I was.
Oh, that's nice. And that creepy cat and the devil and all that. Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And even as you were sort of, you know, it's so funny, actually, within Ulysses, run into it amazingly in Finnegan's Wake. Joyce talks about things that did not exist yet, kind of like a, so, you know, of course he knew about Master and Margarita, you know, they got written 36 years later or whatever. You know, remember how Leonardo da Vinci like had his little designs for helicopters and for submarines and whatnot. Joyce refers to microwave ovens and, you know, things that had not, that might have been glimmers in scientists and engineers' eyes, but they didn't exist. So he could well have been referring to Bulgakov and the Master and Margarita. And do you love it, though, in the light of what we've been talking about already tonight, with your wonderful sort of, you could see the delight on your face, Alex, when you're doing it. I'm like, ooh, fascinating and creepy and really, really sort of imaginative and engrossing. And as we've been talking, not literal, not possible to be literal. You know, when the sort of narrator and the supernatural figure are flying over the whole world, you know, in the night on their, you know, mission, on their little, what's his name's, Mr. Toad's wild ride over the cosmos. Probably not literal. No, the jetpacks were not that good.
Dead child in that, and then this with Rudy. So there seems to be going back to this sort of personification of shame and guilt.
Yeah,
and
loss.
Fear and loss, and it all sort of comes alive in these different, you know, characters.
Yeah, very much so. And as you were saying earlier, the thing can't be literal, but it is real. It's a psychic reality that cannot be gainsaid. It cannot be denied away. Oh, nice. And oh God, let's start to take our way on in a second, but love to sort of hear and place or start to just have teasing ourselves out a little. Pat, from you or from you, John, additionally, any other sort of things that had struck, or in general, before we start to drop down into a handful of places in the text?
I think we covered it.
Yeah, okay. No, we well may have. I just wanted to give us the opportunity to do it. And we'll start, oops, I don't want to mess up my keyboard with this pen. Excuse me. High-tech thing that I am. So as we'll be taking our way into it, we'll be using the same device of reading that we were doing last week. And I'm very sorry that our two cohorts aren't here, but it sort of makes going around in circles easier. Fewer of you, and perhaps, of course, say it again.
Skip Tom anyway.
With poor Tom gone, I can't ignore him. That was just weird. I mean, it was like I'd lost my mind or something, which was not real remote as a possibility. But I mean, it's comical to perseverate making the same mistake over and over again. And you guys like, oh, Claudia.
You did it again.
Did it again, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Yeah, so let's take ourselves, we read, did we not? I've sort of made a wonderful little candy store or potential itinerary of just where things are to take us to. But also please, by every means, if there are passages that I don't think to have a stop on and that you want to look at, or, you know, are more curious about and want to dive into, or horrified and want to unpack and dive into, and I haven't named them, take us there. You know, don't let me steamroll you past something that you want to look at. When we were together last week, did we get to the place where Bloom is thinking to himself, wild goose chase this, about following Stephen on out to the place? Did we look at that?
I remember us talking about the when Molly's dressed up in the.
Okay, it's just past that then. Excellent. So let's look for a second. Thank you. I really couldn't remember where the place was where we were. Thanks, John. So come, my dears, if you would, just behind with Molly in the red Turkish harem outfit, and kind of saucy and insouciant and a little harsh to him. And he said, but I was, you know, worried about your pronunciation. And off she saunters. Look for second soon behind that. It's immediately behind that.
Do you know the general page number?
I'm about to tell you it. You will like it. It's the sort of bottom half of page 441, where I'm going to have us read a little chunk.
Oh, okay.
And then it will go forward to some more of the pieces. So if you would, I'm going to have us start with the little the little stage direction right behind Bloom saying, "Are you sure about that folio? I mean the pronunciate." And then there's another of those little stage directions. So as I was laughing and browbeating you into doing last week, when you'll be swirling around reading the parts, all four of us, you'll sort of read the character or the object, whoever's the speaker, and then read whatever text or dialogue is in it, and on out through, if there's some stuff in parentheses or some stage directions or descriptions, just read that before the next next name comes in. So whoever will be reading the Baud and all the stuff, and then the next one will be reading Bridie and so on. So I'll just reread that last little thing. He follows, as Molly saunters off, followed by the sniffing terrier. The elderly Baud seizes his sleeve, the bristles of her chin mole glittering. We are sort of laughing about the precision. So if we can do this in these orders, to do Alex, then John, then Pat, then me. And so just we'll go, and then you don't have to wait for me to call on you because it disrupts the terrifying flow. So start it up, please, with the Baud, if you would, and we'll go forward, and then I'll pause us, or you can pause us any places also, guys. Go ahead, Alexandra.
The Baud, 10 shillings a maidenhead. Fresh thing was never touched. 15. There's no one in it, only her old father that's dead drunk. She points. In the gap of her dark den furtive, rain bed draggled Birdie Kelly stands.
Rain bedraggled. It's another one of those crashed together words. Thank you, dear. Go ahead, John.
Is it Birdie or Bridie?
It's Bridie.
Bridie. Yeah. I thought it was Birdie too, but I was like, is that a misspelling?
Wait. Flip our letters over.
Bridie. Hat Street. Any good in your mind? With a squeak, she flaps her bat shawl and runs. A burly bruff pursues with booted strides. He stumbles on the steps, recovers, plunges into gloom. Weak squeaks of laughter are heard, weaker.
Oh, okay. The Baud, her wolf eyes shining. He's getting his pleasure. You won't get a virgin in the flash houses. 10 shillings. Don't be all night before the polls in plain clothes see us. 67 is a bench. Leering, Gertie McDowell limps forward. She draws from behind ogling and shows coyly her bloodied clout.
Gertie, with all my worldly goods, I thee and thou, she murmurs. You did that. I hate you.
Bloom, I? When? You're dreaming. I never saw you.
The Baud. Leave the gentleman alone, you cheat, writing the gentleman's false letters. Street walking and soliciting, better for your mother take the strap to you at the bedpost, hussy like you.
Gertie, to Bloom, when you saw all the secrets in my bottom drawer, she paused his sleeve, slobbering. Dirty married man, I love you for doing that to me. She slides away crookedly. Mrs. Breen in man's frieze overcoat with loose bellows pockets, stands in the causeway, her roguish eyes wide open, smiling at all her herbivorous buck teeth.
God, thank you, dear. Mrs. Breen, Mr.
Bloom coughs gravely. Madam, when we last had this pleasure by letter dated the 16th instant.
Mrs. Breen. Mr. Bloom, you down here in the haunts of sin, I caught you nicely, scamp.
Bloom, hurriedly, not so loud my name. Whatever do you think me? Don't give me away. Walls have ears. How do you do? It's ages since you're looking splendid. Absolutely it. Seasonable weather we are having this time of year. Black with cracks heat. Shortcut home here. Interesting quarter. Rescue of fallen women. Magdalen Asylum. I am the secretary.
Mrs. Breen holds up a finger. Now don't tell a big fib. I know somebody won't like that. Oh, just wait till I see Molly. Slyly. Account for yourself this very minute or woe betide you.
Bloom looks behind. She often said she'd like to visit slumming, the exotic, you see. Negro servants, too, in livery if she had money. Othello, black brute, Eugene Stratton. Even the Bones and cornermen at the Livermore Christie's. Bohee brothers. Sweet for that matter. Tom and Sam Bohee, colored coons in white duck suits, scarlet socks, upstarch Sambo chokers, and large scarlet asters in their buttonholes leap out. Each has his banjo slung. Their paler, smaller negroid hands jingle the twing-twang wires. Flashing white Kaffir eyes In tusk they rattle through a breakdown in clumsy clogs, twinging, singing, back to back, toe, heel, heel, toe, with snap, snap, clacking nigger lips. There's someone in the house with Dina. There's someone in the house.
Oh, you can sing it. We'll sing it with you. I'm serious. He means help. We'll sing it with you.
I don't
There's
know.
someone in the house with Dinah. There's someone. Come on, you guys. There's someone in the house I know. There's someone in the house with Dinah playing on an old banjo.
It was Black Mask, raw baby faces, then chuckling, chortling, trumming, twanging, they diddle, diddle, cakewalk, dance away.
Good.
Bloom with a sour, tenderish smile. A little frivol, shall we, if you are so inclined? Would you like me perhaps to embrace you just for a fraction of a second?
Mrs. Breen screams gaily. Oh, you rock, you ought to see yourself.
Bloom, for old sake's sake, I only meant a square party, a mixed marriage mingling of our different little conjugials. You know I had a soft corner for you, gloomily. 'Twas I sent you that valentine of the dear gazelle.
Mrs. Breen, Glory Alice, you do look a holy show, killing simply. She pulls out her hand inquisitively. What are you hiding behind your back? Tell us, there's a dear.
Bloom seizes her wrist with his free hand. Josie Powell, that was the...
Josie Powell, that was.
That was.
Deb. It's kind of an Irish way of saying it.
Okay, Josie Powell, that was. Prettiest Deb in Dublin. How time flies by. Do you remember harking back in a retrospective arrangement? Old Christmas night, Georgina Simpson's housewarming, while they were playing the Irving Bishop game, finding the pin blindfold and thought reading. Subject. What is in the sniffle box? Snuff box.
Mrs. Breen, you were the lion of the night with your serio-common recitation, and you looked the part. You were always a favorite with the ladies.
Bloom, squire of dames in dinner jacket with watered silk facings, blue Masonic badge in his buttonhole, black bow and mother of pearl studs, a prismatic champagne glass tilted in his hand. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ireland, home, and beauty.
Mrs. Breen, the dear dead days beyond recall. Love's old sweet song.
Bloom, meaningfully dropping his voice. I confess, I'm teapot with curiosity to find out whether some person, something is a little teapot at present.
Mrs. Breen, gushingly, tremendously teapot, London's teapot, and I'm simply teapot all over me. She rubbed sides with him. After the parliamentary games and the crackers from the tree, we sat on the staircase ottoman, under the mistletoe. Two is company.
Yeah, ain't it though? Bloom, wearing a purple Napoleon hat with an amber half moon, his fingers and thumbs passing slowly down to her soft, moist, meaty palm, which she surrenders gently. The witching hour of night. I took the splinter out of this hand, carefully, slowly, tenderly, as he slips on her finger a ruby ring. La chidarem la mano.
Mrs. Breen, in a one-piece evening frock executed in moonlight blue, a tinsel silk diadem on her brow, with her dance card fallen beside her moon blue satin slipper, curves her palm softly, moving quickly, volio anon. You're hot, you're scalding. The left hand nearest the heart.
Bloom, when you made your present choice, they said it was Beauty and the Beast. I can never forgive you for that. His clenched fists in his brow, at his brow. Think what it means. All you meant to me then, hoarsely. Woman, it's breaking me. Dennis Breen, white tall-hatted with wisdom, Haley's sandwich board, shuffles past them in carpet slippers, his dull beard thrust out, muttering to right and left. Little Alf Bergen, cloaked in the pall of the ace of spaces, helped him to left and right, doubled in laughter.
Alf Bergen points jeering at the sandwich boards. Up up.
No, that's the UP up on the postcard that he sent Mr. Breen and made him crazy. Because who the hell knows what it means? But Mr. Breen thinks it's some kind of slander and is trying to take a lawsuit out. And this is funny too with that touch. Remember back when seeing and hearing about poor old crazy Mr. Breen who married Josie, whom he's talking to. And Bloom's like, ugh, you know, that, you know, who would do this kind of a thing? And he had thought to himself, you know, it's Alf Bergen or Bob Doran would have done that kind of a thing to mess with that poor, you know, pretty shaky man. It's like, isn't this fun? Let's just have a nice little sadistic torture. And then, you know, when all the big bullies in Barney Kiernan's pub are like, isn't it just Cracker Jacks? And, you know, Bloom's like, yeah, that's worthy. That's a good thing. Like, but that little sense we'd had when he'd met her that Mr. Bloom and Mrs. Breen, Josie Powell, that's like, nay, so-and-so, you know, the maiden name, had been interested in each other earlier in their lives. You know, points jeering at the sandwich boards. UP, up! Mrs. Breen to Bloom. Hijinks below stairs. She gives him the glad eye. Why don't you kiss the spot to make it well? You wanted to.
Bloom, shocked. Molly's best friend. Could you?
Mrs. Breen, her purpley tongue between her lips, offers a pigeon kiss. The answer is a lemon. Have you a little present for me there?
Bloom offhandedly. Kosher, a snack for supper. The home without potted meat is incomplete. I was at Leah. Mrs. Banman Palmer, trenchant exponent of Shakespeare, unfortunately threw away the program. Rattling good place around there for pig's feet. Feel. Richie Golding, three ladies' hats pinned on his head, appears weighted to one side by the black legal bag of Collis and Ward, on which a skull and crossbones are painted in white lime wash. He opens it and shows it full of polonies, kippered herrings, pinned patties, and high-packed pills.
Richie, best value in dub. Bald Pat, bothered beetle, stands on the curbstone, folding his napkin, waiting to wait.
Hacked advances with a tilted dish of spilling gravy. Steak and kidney, bottle of lager. He. Wait till I wait.
Richie, good God, invertebrate and all. With hanging head, he marches doggedly forward. The Navy, lurching by, gores him with his flaming pronghorn.
Richie, with
And
a cry.
wait, pause one quick second. Back when they were having lunch, and remember, Bloom is remembering Richie Goulding used to be quite the little wit and bon vivant and had a little thing, and then, you know, his back's hurting him. He gets all of those bogus snake oil pills, and Richie either says this or Bloom sort of pictures it in his head. How you read it, John, makes perfect sense. That's how Joyce typed it, or wrote it longhand, and the typesetter said it. But he's actually also sort of banging together like a kind of a joke or a play with sounds. Good God, he never ate in all. Well, like breaking the words where the syllables really would be. And, you know, hanging head, he marches darling. Oh, it's me, it's I, yay. I can't skip Tom because he's not here. So I'll try to skip him. Richie, with a cry of pain, his hand to his back. Ah, brights, lights.
Bloom points to the Navy. A spy. Don't attract attention. I hate stupid crowds. I am not on pleasure bent. I am in a grave predicament.
Mrs. Breen, humbugging and deluthering as per usual with your cock and bull story.
Bloom, I want to tell you a little secret about how I came to be here. But you must never tell, not even Molly. I have a most particular reason.
So let's pause here for a minute and press on. Oh, not for all the worlds. Let's walk on. Let's so on. Remember, about 3 pages ago, 4, he's like, oh, this is convenient, nice little shortcut to get home the shorter way, I was at Leia, Mrs. Banman Palmer. Shame that I threw the playbill away. What kind of things on its face is he doing as he talks that way?
He's lying.
He's lying. Is like making excuse for, why they're encountering down in Nighttown. And again, it's like, God, Mrs. Breen, probably not. Like we laughed about, who concretely is there? Bloom's there, Stevens there, Lynch is there, Mrs. Cohen's there, the Three Lahores are there. Some cannot categorically be there, as we'd laughed last week, because they're dead or whatever, or, because they're not even alive. I mean, they're an object or a thing. They're also probably, not only is the dog probably not spontaneously changing his breed every 3 pages, their outfits keep changing every 3 pages. Poof, presto, changeo. I know, but sort of like how you would make an excuse for being somewhere where you shouldn't be caught at. It's like, I'd like to tell you a little particular thing. Even Molly must, oh, do tell me. So come forward. I'm sorry. Speak anything to it that you'd like, and then I have a few more earmarks out to take us to before we do our stretch. But anything you'd like to speak or touch to that we've just roiled our way through in our words?
Yeah, I think we're going to see throughout this, especially this week's reading, this sort of change in demeanor of Bloom. We see him going from very passive during the whole cuckolding stuff to being more assertive later with Stephen and paternalistic. So,
yeah,
we see different elements of Bloom throughout this whole sequence.
Yeah. Oh God, that's nice. And isn't it interesting that those 2 big dramatic things, as you say, that you named, and we see him kind of accosted by 18 different people. Oh, he's a cat, he's a brute. And we see him going on trial. And as you guys laughed last week, Buck Mulligan, the doctor, pronounces him the new womanly man. And the most, the 7 most precious words it's given to human ears ever to utter. I am about to have a baby. And he has his 7 metal-faced kids, the muse of this, the muse of that. And then, gets assailed some more, and then is kind of running for mayor, and he has his, what would you say? God help us with this time of caucuses and primaries and whatnot. The planks, for a platform. He has his positions he's taken up in among the sort of the drama of what seem kind of actual things. I mean, not the transmutations, but the groveling and grief-giving debasement when the cuckolding scene and the really being violated scene is happening. Please, Alex.
This section that we just read, this passage, seems to be more of the sort of polite, formal, unassuming Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of that we first encountered,
Yes, I think you're right.
A little bit odd, a little bit off, but basically, sort of polite, soft-spoken, apologetic.
Yeah. A little interested, still in talking and schmoozing, but nothing's like spiky, on a flow chart or something. Exactly as you say. That's a nice emphasis. John, you had a thought cooking.
Oh, he's also starting to show us he's a little bit of a scamp,
Yeah, he's being a little flirty, Yeah.
Friend, and he's he shouldn't be too upset. I think that Molly's cheating on him because he's definitely wandering himself,
Yeah. His thoughts certainly go there. He has his little billet doux. He has seen horrors. He gets so excited and climaxes interacting visually with Gertie
in the middle of the park.
Yeah. Although it is also interesting those ways, and I'm not meaning to be mechanical, and I wouldn't presume or think that you are. I mean, as so to speak, merely mechanical. That is to say, like plumbing. That Bloom is kind of oriented that way. And that, remember when he was first at the Lugas at the pork store getting his food for breakfast, and the nice hefty maidservant from next door was there, and he was liking being behind her. And he wanted Mr. Lugas to hurry the hell up and do his transaction because he wanted to walk behind her moving hams. And then he's thinking, you know, she's the next door maid, and you know, she whacks the carpets out on the clothesline to clean them, and she does whack it, my God, like, oh, how'd you mean? Yeah, and so he's kind of there. But the sort of drama, oh, this is interesting too. Wonderfully raising. He certainly is not monastic, you know, or like celibate in his thought and urges and imagination. But it feels so big and momentous and just almost arresting, the point of being paralyzing, of, are Blazes Boylan and Molly going to consummate? And then he, you know, fully consummate, so to say. And you know, and then as the days going on, it's like, well, my God, why is he hanging out here in the bar at the Ormond? Is he standing her up? You know, it's like, you know, go stand on the threshold with a, you know, repeating rifle, like my student friend Joe wants to, and gets red every time he thinks of not doing it. But it's kind of epochal for Bloom, you know, EPOCH, about this, and fear and grief and worry, and also that huge fact and truth and awareness that they have not fully consummated since the death of Rudy. You know, going on, is it 9 years or 11 years? He died 11 days after he was born. I think it's going on 11 years too. And even that recognition, we didn't read the part over our weeks, but a couple of you guys had well brought it up. I think we had spoken it into the conversation, that Bloom is very aware that Molly is a very passionate person. And he worries and kind of empathizes that it must be very hard for her, for them not to have been having a full and satisfying sexual life at this time. And so there's even that little bit of brooding generosity of, you know, she may need this. And it's like, wow, it's like, man up, be a man. Well, Bloom has a lot of generosity and even maybe a kind of androgynous thing, which is also interesting with the gender changes, isn't it? Yes, please, John, that's nice. Alex, please.
Well, I mean, and so far he hasn't had a full relationship with anyone, not Molly.
No, he's not.
Not with Gardy. You go back to the beginning, the letter he receives from Martha where she's, you naughty boy, I'm going to punish you. Of course, that all plays out later, you know, with the
writ large with Bella. Yeah.
But you know, in reality, all of these things are just sort of partial, you know.
Yes, they're little dalliances on the fringe. That's probably wonderful. You're stressing that. What I was realizing, it's like not only merely literally plumbing or not plumbing, but he's not, and it's looking like it's going to have been the case that Blazes and Molly did do the full consummation. And in fact, I suppose, oh, shut up, Muggs, let them find it. We may well be deducing that they did consummate, and they did. But so fascinating as the whole book goes on to take in all of how we know that, and how loaded up, how laden, if you will, are the discoveries that we'll be making. Some of them almost like forensic, like evidences that are amazing, but also what's going on in Bloom's head. And then God bless us everyone when we get into Molly's head in the, you know, in the last chapter in her soliloquy. Check this out, where this all goes. Nicely brought up. So let's go forward a bit onto 452 for a bit, and then a few other of the places. Oh, and in between, you know, Private Carr and Private Compson kind of make their early appearance in among a bunch of folks on the way to this. But come to 452, which of you dears, or possibly myself, read last? Do you recall? Never mind, we'll start at the top again. Alex, you know, and you know, a dog comes again. He staggers forward. The navy, oh, it's also so funny. I've always thought that meant sailors, but because it looks like it's going to be navy, But a navvy is kind of like a dockhand or like a stevedore or like kind of like a heavy laborer on the streets or construction or, you know, digging holes or stuff like that. And so it's kind of a rough, strong, crude, laboring man. So that he staggers forward, dragging them with him. Bloom stops at fault. The dog approaches, his tongue out lolling, panting. Alex, would you take it up then at the Bloom? Wild goose chase this.
Bloom, wild goose chase this. Disorderly houses. Lord knows where they are gone. Drunks cover distance double quick. Nice mix up. Seen at Westland Row. Then jump in first class with third ticket. Then too far. Train with engine behind. Might have taken me to Malahide or a siding for the night or collision. Second drink does it. Once is a dose. What am I following him for? Still, he's the best of that lot. If I hadn't heard about Mrs. Beaufoy Purefoy, I wouldn't have gone and wouldn't have met Kismet. He'll lose that cash. Relieving office here. Good biz for cheap jacks, organs. What do you lack? Soon got, soon gone. Might have lost my life too with that man gong wheel track trolley glare juggernaut.
Good job.
Only for presence of mind. Can't always save you though. If I'd passed Trulock's window that day 2 minutes later, would have been shot. Absence of body. Still, if a bullet only went through my coat, get damages for shock, 500 pounds. What was he? Kildare Street Club Toff. God help his gamekeeper. He gazes ahead on the wall, a scrawled chalk legend, wet dream, and a phallic design. Odd. Molly drawing on the frosted carriage pane at Kingstown. What's that like? Gaudy doll women loll in the lighted doorways and window embrasures, smoking bird's eye cigarettes. The odor of the six-sweet weed floats towards him in slow, round, ovaling wreaths.
The wreaths, sweet are the sweets, sweets of sin.
Bloom, my spine's a bit limp. Go or turn. And this food. Eat it and get all pig sticky. Absurd I am. Waste of money. 1 and 8 pence too much. The retriever drives a cold, sniveling muzzle against his hand, wagging his tail. Strange how they take to me, even that brute today. Better speak to him first. Like women, they like rencontre. Stinks like a polecat. Chacun son goût. He must be mad, Fido. Uncertain in his movements. Good fellow, Gary Owen. The wolf dog sprawls on his back, wiggling obscenely with begging paws, his long black tongue lolling out. Influence of his surroundings, give and have done with it, provided nobody. Calling encouraging words, he shambles back with a furtive poacher's tread, dogged by the setter into a dark, stale skunk corner. He unrolls one parcel and goes to dump the bean softly, but holds back and feels the trotter. Sizable for 3 pence, but then I have it in my left hand. Calls for more effort. Why? Smaller from want of use. Oh, let it slide. 2 and 6. What is he talking about?
Can I have us go a little bit farther forward, then we're going to double back and talk through both of these paragraphs.
Okay.
But we'll press upon and unpack it a goodly bit, Pat. Go ahead and read your little parenthesis, italics.
With regret, he lets unrolled crubine and trotter slide. The mastiff mauls the bundle clumsily and gluts himself with growling greed, crunching the bones. Two rain-capped watch approach, silent, vigilant. They murmur together.
The watch, Bloom, of Bloom, for Bloom, Bloom. Each lays a hand on Bloom's shoulder.
First watch, caught in the act, Commit no nuisance.
Bloom stammers, I'm doing good to others. A covey of gulls, the storm petrels, rise hungrily from lithy slime with banbury cakes in their beaks.
The gulls, claw cave, kangaroo cake.
Bloom, the friend of man, trained by kindness. He points. Bob Doran, toppling from a high bar stool, sways over the munching spaniel.
Bob Doran. Towser, give us a paw. Give the paw. The bulldog growls, his scruff standing. A goblet of pig's knuckle between his molars, through which rabid scum spittle dribbles. Bob Doran falls silently into an area.
A second watch, prevention of cruelty to animals.
Bloom, enthusiastically. A noble work. I scolded that tram driver on Harold's Cross Bridge for losing the poor
Ill-using.
For ill-losing, oh, okay, thank you, for ill-losing the poor horse with his harness scab. Bad French I got for my pains. Of course, it was Frosty and the last tramp. All tales of circus life are highly demoralizing. Signor Mappe, passion pale, in Hans Hammer's costume, with diamond studs in his shirt front, steps forward, holding a citrus paper hoop, a curling carriage whip, and a revolver with which he covers the gorging boarhound.
Senior Maffei, with a sinister smile. Oh boy, I'm sorry. I forgot I had this little microphone up in here. Sorry. Eeps, eeps. Getting eaten alive by my equipment here. With a sinister smile. Ladies and gentlemen, my educated greyhound. Look how many dogs this dog has become in 2 pages. It's like 6 or 8 breeds. It was broke. I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, my educated greyhound. It was I broke in the bucking bronco Ajax with my patent spiked saddle for carnivores, lash under the belly with a knotted thong. Block tackle and a strangling pulley will bring your lion to heel, no matter how fractious. Even Leo Ferox there, the Libyan man-eater, a red-hot crowbar and some liniment rubbing on the burning part, produced Fritz of Amsterdam, the thinking hyena. I possess the Indian sign. The glint of my eye does it with these breast sparklers, with a bewitching smile. I now introduce Mademoiselle Ruby, the pride of the ring.
First watch. Come, name and address.
Bloom, I have forgotten for the moment. Ah, yes, he takes off his high-grade hat, saluting. Dr. Bloom, Leopold, dental surgeon. You have heard of von Bloom Pasha, up teen millions. Donnerwetter, owns half Austria, Egypt, cousin.
First watch, proof. A card falls from inside the leather headband of Bloom's hat.
Bloom, in red fez, Cadiz dress coat with broad green sash, wearing a false badge of the Legion of Honor, picks up the card hastily and offers it. Allow me. My club is the Junior Army and Navy. Solicitors, Messrs. John Henry Menton, 27 Bachelor's Walk.
First watch reads, Henry Flower, no fixed abode, unlawfully watching and besetting.
Second watch, an alibi. You are cautioned.
Bloom produces from his heart pocket a crumpled yellow flower. This is the flower in question. It was given me by a man, I don't know his name, plausibly. You know that old joke, Rose of Castile. Bloom. The change of name, Virag. He murmurs privately and confidentially. We are engaged, you see, Sergeant. Lady in the case, love entanglement. He shoulders the second watch gently. Dash it all. It's the way we gallants have in the Navy. Uniform that does it. He turns gravely to the first watch. Still, of course, you do get your Waterloo sometimes. Drop in some evening and have a glass of old Burgundy. To the second watch, gaily. I'll introduce you, Inspector. She's game. Do it in shake of a lamb's tail.
Let's pause it for a second and double back to those earlier, bigger paragraphs where you had mentioned it, Pat. And it's interesting, as you're saying, it's like, the oscillation or the ebb and flow or rise and fall of Bloom's like state from within, Alex, as you were saying, and as we're all experiencing and picturing, imagining our ways into, of his reception from the seeming outside world, you know, and you know, he's kind of trying to be the gay Blade to a degree here and so on, and the watch going, that wonderful big paragraph on 452, excuse me, that Alex read for us, wild goose chase this. And, you know, all of the thoughts he's having, you know, he's even, it's a little summary of what Buck Mulligan and, you know, giving him the ditch, you know, jumping the rails at you know, Westland Road, jumping first class, you know, but why am I doing this? Might have taken me to Malahide all night or a crash. Second drink does it. Of course, what has Mr. Bloom had today to drink, given that he doesn't drink to speak of at all? What are his 2 drinks that worries him? He had his glass of Burgundy when he got his little clean lunch after that horrible meat-eating, chewy, spitting Burton restaurant. Men, with his little cheese sandwich, you know, with drops of mustard on it. And then he had a ginger beer when he was with, no, I'm sorry, cider, you know, hard cider when he had his lunch at the Ormond during the siren scene when the men were singing with Richie Goulding. And then remember, fairly hospitably at the lying in hospital, when they were pouring the pitchers to the people, one of the men poured beer or stout for him, you know, and it's like he kind of faked it, moved around, and then he poured the bulk of it into his neighboring person's glass, which I'd like fine, you know, and it's like, oh, you know, he's gonna lose that cash when he's worrying about relieving office, you know, what do you like? Soon might have lost my life. Why am I down here? You know, he doesn't go down to the brothel district to see, you know, I said prostitutes. You know, I might have been killed by that street sweeper going by, you know, the sand strewer, that you read that so well. Man tracked Glenn Glong, only for presence of mind. He knows it and jumped out of the way and got, you know, mocked and yelled at. You know, presence of mind, well, but presence of mind can't save you if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, if I had happened past True Shot's shop window that day, 2 minutes later would have been shot. The absence of body, you know, gone. What's that? Still, if the bullet only went through the sleeve, through my coat, get damages for shock. As we laughed a little bit last week, 500 pounds, you know. It's like the people when the, you know, CTA bus has a crash and all of a sudden they fling themselves on the floor and have, you know, back injuries. I could have, you know, sued for damages. Get 500 pounds. What was he? Kildare Street Club Tough. God help his gamekeeper who did the bad shot. But we have seen in the Wandering Rocks, Bob Kernan bought that coat that Bloom is imagining about secondhand. It's like, you know, I do look good in the windows when I walk by doing my job. And he's like, you know, dress does make a difference. He's thinking of himself, you know, and the phallic, sweets of sin going into. Remember we laughed at that little book, that little foley, the horrible, grody, bald, gob-spewing bookseller's with the garlic breath and the scabs on his head, with the, you know, and all the money the husband, you know, brought home from his work and gave to his wife, all went to costliest frillies for him, for Raoul, that he had quite liked. So that's in his pocket. And then, you know, the watch beginning to interact. Like, what are you doing? Bloom, Bloom. Caught in the act. And he's like, well, let's not be conspicuous, taking the food pieces, the live animal feet that were cooked up that he bought, and he's giving to the dog. You know, commit no, I am doing good to others. You know, and there's all that sound of the birds. And the gulls testify wonderfully, as you read, Pat. Caw, cave, Camberry cake. When was Bloom earlier feeding food to creatures that he thought might be hungry?
He was throwing them into the...
You throw him in the Liffey. Yeah. You know, after he'd been curious, he's like, well, let me wad up this little flyer for the Elijah is coming, the throwaway that got him hated because the people thought he bet on the horse. And he's like, no, they're too smart. They're not going to just chase a little wadded up piece of paper that dropped into the Liffey. It's like, that's mean. That's a tease. Let's get them some real little crumbs of things they can eat. And then he's like, that's enough. They're going to dive bomb me. Sorry?
I forgot that whole section about Elijah is coming. And then, of course, we see Elijah here. So again, that's another character.
Yes, yes, yeah. It's like, and it just looms up. No puns intended. And I don't know if I had said this to you guys, you know, and he just like, well, let's see if they'll dive down and eat this. Like, no, they're too smart. They can tell the difference. And boink, you know, goes the little wad of crumpled paper, or crumpled throwaway into the Liffey. And of course, the Liffey's a river. It's flowing out into the Dublin Bay, hence into the Irish Sea. And notice, and this was kind of where I first like, oh my God, you know, it's like he really does hope and want us to remember every frickin' syllable, and he will pay off for us. He'll make it pay off, because I started to be seeing in the various terms he describes it in, the little piece of paper bouncing off of different things as it floats out the Liffey, you know, and bounces off the bridge piers at one of the places, and then, you know, bounces against a three-master with bricks, which was the ship Stephen had seen out on the three-master from Bridgewater with bricks, the Rosavine. It's like, oh dear God, you know, the threads and the, you know, warp and woof of a weaving, like you said, the tapestry, or the marks of pigment on a big Monet, you know, or the kaleidoscope of pieces of glass in a great rose window stained glass. He's doing it with words, you know, and so the stuff is changing with Bloom in these ways. There's one other short place I'd like us to do, excuse me, and then we'll take our little stretches, and then we'll dive into some of the big things. You know, it'd be so easy to do this book for a year, and we wouldn't run out of juice and be more. Come to 460, if you would, for a minute, my dears. And this goes back. Oh, I'm sorry, Pat, you were also asking about the paragraph, I'm sorry, that came after that, which is largely his, you know, he's thinking, it was like, you know, my spine's a bit limp. He's like, because of having orgasm, you know, and it's like, go or turn. I'm kind of tired. That girl, why did I buy these feet meats, and gives them to it. And, you know, just like, let's be private, but go on. And you know, it's funny when you're saying near the ending of the paragraph, the big paragraph at the top of 453, I was like, oh my gosh, when right before you said, you know, what's going on here? What's talking about? And unrolls and drops one of them, the crabine, and then he's getting ready to get the trotter out of his, from the other species, out of his other pocket. Sizable for three, but holds back and feels the trotter. He'd already dropped the crabine on the ground for the dog to eat, and holds back and feels the trotter. Sizable for threepence, but then I have it in my left hand. It's like, he's so scientific. Calls for more effort. Why? Smaller from want of use. Let it slide. 2 and 6 that he paid for the 2 pieces of meat. And I found myself, it's like, it feels sizable. It's like, well, feels bigger in my hand than the other and heavier. It's like, I have it in my non-dominant hand. You know, why? You know, not why is it in my hand? You know, blah, blah, blah. Why is it this? But his little inquiring mind, it may well not be any bigger or heavier than the other piece of feet meat, but he's conscious of relative perception, you know, that he's holding it in his non-dominant hand. But then, Pat, when you're like, what's going on here? I had just started to have a funny bounce to my mind, and sort of given Bloom and some of his predilections, as we know, feels heavier. Why? Smaller from want of use. Oh, let it slide, you know, drop the thing. 2 and 6. And I was like, my first bounce thought, I mean, clearly it's his non-dominant hand. But my next thought was, feels smaller for want of use. His right hand is stronger for much more use. And I thought, masturbation can be fun, like the you know, what was that musical back in the day, Hair. You know, what is your dominant hand for that? Not just your dominant hand in the world. I'm a hopeless right-handed person. And I was like, Mugs? Where's that coming from? But it just kind of bubbled up in my mind. You know, Bloom could well think that, because he's so earthy and about himself. And remember when we're laughing, like when Stephen is like, oh, go down and see Uncle Richie and Aunt, what's her name, the Gouldings, when he was walking, heading into the Proteus scene. And then we have that amazing scene of him being there and talking, and Richie Goulding whistling and sitting in his bed, naked to the waist with his chest, and he washed it, and Walter, his little boy, and whistling. And then we hear Stephen think, oh, guess I'm not going to Aunt Sally and Uncle Richie's. That he'd kept walking, and he came past the place where there was the cutoff to go down to where they lived. But we'd also heard his father talking really savagely about the Gouldings and Uncle Richie and their family. Is it your cornet playing uncle, Papa's little lump of, and of course, what word do we expect to be behind Papa's little lump of, about their newest child, their newest baby girl? We expect, do we not, little lump of love, right? Because of the way it sounds. And Mr. Dedalus had said, and Chrissy, the new one, Papa's little lump of dung. Whew. But so that the kind of connections and how and where they can come, like the, buried, bubbling life of mind and feeling and connections that we all have. But Joyce was creating it with the intentionality of art in these crazy ass ways. I'm getting too excited and talking too much. Alex, you look like you had a thought, and then we'll stretch and do our things. No? Pat, John, anything to put in the hopper to leave each other with before we have our little stretch and refreshment?
No.
Okay, synchronize our watches, come back in 15 minutes, and we'll dive into some of the big and heavier ones too. Yes, please, Alex.
I'll see y'all next week.
Oh, that's right, you have to drive. Please be very careful, and have a good meeting. We'll miss you.
Okay.
Bye, sweet.
Bye.
Bye, John. Okay, John and Pat, I'll see you in 15 minutes.
Okay.
Hello, darling Pat.
Hey,
Not only do I A, love you, and B, love your beautiful little silvery hair and your little mane voice, but when you sit like that, you look like an angel because the light's behind your head like a halo. Ooh la la.
how things can be deceptive.
How they can be indeed. How they can be indeed. I like it. Oh,
How
so
many more weeks is this course?
we end, I believe, I think it's 5 weeks, I believe. We end, I think, on March 10th, perhaps, or 12th.
Oh,
I think it's 5 weeks. Let me double check. Nothing up my sleeves. Are you getting settled in nicely to your new place as time goes on?
yes, I am.
Wonderful. It's always important and helpful to do so. Yes, that's correct. 5 weeks, sweetie. And it gets less. There's no chapter in here like this thing. You'll be happy to hear.
I am to hear because I don't like this chapter.
I know you don't. I know you don't. You know, both in content and in form, it's reasonably hair-raising. In fact, very hair-raising while we're at it. I think things that we'll be finding. I'm trying to think for a second. We have 5 weeks, but we have only 4 more chapters. And is that right? Actually, 3 more chapters, but we have 5 weeks because I give us plenty of time to be able to talk about them. But so the rescuing, the sort of, you know, recohering that Mr. Bloom does, and rescuing Stephen here, and the very big and real concern he has about him. You know, it's like, oh my God, this kid's in trouble, and he's punched out by the you know, private car and private Compson, he's realizing, you know, Bloom, as you guys were saying, has taken charge. I think John would say taken charge of Stephen's money, you know, and his ash plant, his walking stick or shillelagh, and his hat. But he's like, what is the situation or the lot of this young man? You know, does he have a place to put his head for sleep? Does he have any food? And Bloom is realizing no. And so it'll be very interesting as we're talking our way next week, excuse me, in the section that Joyce called Eumaeus, you know, from the swineherd, the safe shelter that the swineherd in the Odyssey gives, who's taking care of the pigs, the swine on Odysseus' estate, to Odysseus when he first lands safely back at Ithaca. Bloom is going to be taking Stephen to a little cabman's shelter to try to get some food and drink into him. And it's like a temperance shelter. It's like Salvation Army or something, you know, to try to be a safe place for people not to drink. So when we're reading and talking next week, that's where he's going to be being. And of course, they're both very tired. And, you know, Stephen, we learn, Bloom asks him in his usual thoughtful and empathic and kind of parental way, you know, when did you last eat in this coming chapter? And, you know, Stephen thinks, you know, this morning is like yesterday, day before yesterday. And Bloom also starts to think, hey, Millie, their daughter, is down becoming a photography apprentice in Mullingar, and we have a spare room. And Stephen could have a safe place to, you know, to put his head and hang his hat. And he starts wondering if it would be a good thing on many counts, you know, to have Stephen be safe, and he could have a little place to be, and he could write, you know, do what he wants with his art. And we'll also start to see Bloom a little bit thinking, well, this could be good in many ways. You know, he knows, apparently Bloom knows, that Stephen Dedalus, the character, just like James Joyce, the real man, the author, in his college degree, got a degree in modern languages with a tremendous concentration in Italian. So Bloom is kind of thinking, well, you know, Molly, because she's a professional singer, could help Stephen, you know, learn the finer points of singing. He knows he's got a beautiful tenor voice, just like his daddy. And Stephen can help Molly to have even better Italian pronunciation. And of course, what also might having Stephen around distract Molly from? Can you see? Yes, can you imagine this? And you know, it almost like is to a degree. It's like, you know, you know, is he just hoping the interest and doing other things in fascination, or is like, well, I'd rather trade in, you know, give me one Stephen Dedalus and get rid of one Blazes Boylan. It's like, yeah, it's like, you know, almost like reconstituting a family. And then even a kind of measure of, is he sort of reconstituting it with an Oedipal complex built in? It's like, oh my God. But there's such interesting, funny and poignant and haunting things. John, Pat and I were just talking about the timing, that there are 5 more weeks, although there are only 3 more chapters, but I sort of allot 2 chapters more or less for the Ithaca chapter when he gets back into his own house. That is that famous all questions and answers thing, all questions and answers, like a catechism. And then, of course, the last chapter is Molly's amazing flowing forward soliloquy. So it's going to be very, very fun to be getting to talk about these things. Well, since we are a little gang of 3 now, let me throw the floor back open to take our conversation anywhere that you guys are intrigued, or that you find yourselves puzzled, or, you know, if you find yourselves outraged, or, you know, want to unpack things some more a little bit, since we have the luxury to do that because we don't have the full complement of people. And, you know, we need to share the mic, share the floor with each other, but we're smaller right now because Alex had to leave. So speak a little bit in any directions. It's always fine, of things that are at work for you as you're experiencing over these 2 weeks, the Nighttown chapter. That's a good face, John. What's behind that little face?
I was waiting for Pat because I thought maybe she...
I'm waiting for Pat. After you, no, after you. What?
Wow.
What'd you say, Pat?
Okay, go ahead.
After you, no, after you.
I don't know. I just, you know, like reading along the places that you enjoy. That always seems to be good spots.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I don't want to, again, steamroll you. But so if there's any places in particular you guys would like to go to that I might have noted or I might not have, you know, feel free to speak them out, or I'll start up our candy store list again and look at some of them and unpack them some.
Okay.
Okay, Pat, anything you want to just dive back in?
Well, who are the Reeves, for example? The Reeves.
The wreaths are wreaths. Exactly. It's just like, why is a bucket of, you know, lime wash talking? You know, why is a clock talking? You know, why is the like the specter when Mr. Bloom's out in the hall and he sees in the mirror, or hallucinates in the mirror, who the hell knows, like a stag, you know, with antlers superimposed on Shakespeare's head. And he's like thinking, of course, about when a man has horns on his head, what does that signify, at least in the Western iconology?
A cuckold.
That he's a cuckold. And of course, Bloom's looking in a mirror, you know, and then there's Shakespeare's head and the thing. And kind of close in among the place where we were here, I had a little quick note. Bloom hears kind of heavy footsteps, you know, like out in the hallway, away from the central rooms where the people are in the whorehouse. And he thinks, could that be he? Did he not go or come here after? You know, so Bloom's like, ugh, within this of, is Blazes Boylan here now after having consummated with Molly?
Mm-hmm.
And remember, you know, so you know, wonderfully and weirdly, as your question raises, Pat, I suppose it would almost be like a really wild filmmaker literalizing or bringing to life or anthropomorphizing, you know, talking dogs or horses or objects. And so the wreaths are, you know, it's funny. I was just getting ready to say it would be an interesting project, and then I just realized, you know, with the James Joyce industry, it no doubt has been done, you know, in the shelves and shelves of critics and commentaries and dissertations in the libraries. Even simply kind of to make a list mechanically and even merely only this chapter of objects that are characters, you know, like in this mini drama, because it looks like a play script, you know, and speaking, doing deeds, interacting. And that in itself would be kind of a weird and wonderful thing, just to make like a little running list of all the things, and maybe the things they do, or even just you know, naming, getting down all those things. But again, that's like, what are those, as you rightly raised? It's like, who knows or can control what associations or sensory images can come and do things. And as all of you in many ways tonight were rightly remarking, and me too, the raw material and then the transmutations of things in dreams, literally, I mean, real dreams when you're asleep and you're dreaming, and the Freudian kind of things from that, you know, or just the free associations, like, you know, not while you're asleep, during the daytime, that we powerfully have been seeing, and I think doing a really good job of noticing, as we've talked, that Mr. Bloom is constantly doing. And Stephen too, you know, probably equally constantly. But of course, how different are the two men, the older man and the younger man? They both have real active thought lives and emotion and imagination lives. But my God, their beings, their identities, and their backgrounds and their trainings are radically different, are they not? And Stephen is such a pointy-headed, you know, is like a pointy-headed Hyde Parker, like overeducated or something, you know, and he's kind of a lonely, aloof, I mean, he doesn't feel lonely, but keeps himself lone and is kind of on the outside in his way, just like Bloom is kind of ostracized or on the outside in his way. So each of those men is their own best company, so to say. And stay tuned, of course, at the wonderful activeness and activity of mind and feeling and expression and emotion and association of things, and quickness of memory that we'll be seeing in Molly Bloom when we finally get the fun and the richness and the difficulty a little bit, but the intimacy of hearing her and picturing, you know, they're all in bed. She and Bloom are in their bed in the last chapter in this. He's back in Ithaca, and he's not only in his house, he's in his bed, but we'll also, and so is she. We'll learn all kinds of things. And it's like, man. And picture back in you guys' experience of the Odyssey. I think I told you this, did I not? It's so fun for the basic program teaching staff, because it's kind of like, I don't know, the great chessboard in the sky every quarter that we make ourselves available, you know, to the chair, whoever it is at the time, to do the great chessboard in the sky and fill in all the teachers in the different places from all the time windows that we offer and all the materials we're prepared to do. And so it's always changing. It's never redundant. But so then each of us, as we teach the various things, and as in the regular BP, as you both know, in the students going through, you get to juxtapose the material in the seminar and the tutorial for each quarter as you're doing it. So, sorry, that's kind of a long preface, as is most of what I say. It happens, it fell out this, oh no, Pat, are you gone? Where'd you go?
Maybe it died.
Oh, maybe she bumped it. Oh, there she is. Oh, good, oh, good. Oh, Pat, don't go away. I'm getting to do the Odyssey 3 times this quarter while we're doing this. I'm assigned to 3 of the second-year seminars.
Wow.
Yeah, big wow. And so, you know, and of course, and again, you guys would kind of know this from experience when different people are in the group, or then a different basic program instructor, and then when you're reading different texts, it's never redundant. It's never boring, because each of the people brings different things to notice. You know, so it's even in the course of Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, Wednesday night that I teach these, very close succession. But where I was going, sorry, with the big personal thing, is that as we've been reading, we're almost at the end of the Odyssey. We have one more week on it of the, settling the hash of the suitors, the big slaughter. The cavalry takes care of everybody. We were recognizing in the way that Penelope interacts with people and the terrible suitors, and then, of course, wonderfully, how she and Odysseus are talking now that he's made inroads into his own house, into his own, estate. And they have the wonderful talk while he's still in his disguise as a beggar. And they're both kind of sounding each other out before the big reveal at the end after he killed the suitors. And the people in each of the classes in different ways were wonderfully, like we're doing as we look in this amazing, weird-ass, wonderful book, letting themselves down into and noticing and thinking and feeling about it. How powerful and good and equally endowed, not with the identical same gifts, but what to say, not in kind, but in quality and degree, Penelope and Odysseus are for each other. That boy, are they well matched. And it's going to be so interesting and fun a few weeks down the road over the last 2 weeks when we're working. And we're in Molly Bloom's soliloquy passage to finally be getting her in her own words and in her own being. I can't wait. I like where we are now, though, too. Okay, so let me bring you back in the little quickie place. Okay. Again, just in the realm of the tiny, funny pickups. I'm only going to have us do this one for a couple of pages, and then we'll start to head on into some of the more fraught stuffs. But come, if you would, dear hearts, to page 460. As we were remarking, Bloom gets attacked, verbally attacked for things, and gets put on trial, and they even call for his execution. And, then there are those testimonies of the various doctors, most of whom we met in the lying in hospital. Sorry, excuse me a second.
I sympathize. I've been coughing all night.
Yeah, that scratchy throat. Have some tea and honey, or hooch, have some whiskey. My grandma, Rosie McCullough Sullivan, would cure everything by going to bed with a bottle of whiskey. She was not a drunken person, or her husband was. My grandpa, Claude, after whom I'm named, and my mommy is also named, but nobody called him Claude. They called him 8-Ball. Grandpa 8-Ball was an alcoholic. He was a real one, but Rosie wasn't. She'd just cure her ailments with her bottle of whiskey.
My grandfather would say, I have a wee dram of whiskey.
Yeah, yes. A wee dram. And it's like the way we saw Mr. Daedalus and the people talking, at the various bars. So come on 460. So here charges are beginning to come against Bloom. So at the top, oops, sorry. Just 1 second. My finger jumped it. Oh God. Very bottom of 459, Beaufoy, and of course, how's this working? Beaufoy was the writer of Matcham's Masterstroke by Philip Beaufoy, who was the writer of the little soft porn story Bloom was reading in the outhouse in the morning, and sort of got released at the climax of the story, and also released his bowel muscles. And I had the very pleasant sensation of both things. It was like, no, and he's thinking, maybe Molly and I could write a story. They pay, £2 for a column, inches or what have you, as it were. So I remember when they're talking about Mrs. Purefoy, who had the 89th baby, Bloom kept getting, is like, Beaufoy, Mrs. Beaufoy, Purefoy, how you correct yourself. And so we never see or hear Beaufoy, but he's the story writer. So if you would, we'll go in the order of John Pat me. So the very bottom of 459, Beaufoy, you low cad.
Beaufoy, you low cad.
Oh, wait, I'm just perverse, as you guys know I am. Jump up 2 tiny things, a voice from the gallery with what I just said again, because of course, what did he do after he finished reading the paper And if after he finished doing his BM, then what did he have to do? This is not complicated. What does anyone have to do after they finish a BM? Wipe your fanny, right? You have to wipe your fanny. And he didn't have any TP. So, you know, what did he do? He tore the part of the page out of the little newspaper, soft porn, and wiped his fanny with that. As earlier when, what is it? When Stephen delivers Mr. Deasy's big letters about, oh, and cattle, you know, cure their illnesses, get these put in the paper, it's all wrong. That we had seen Stephen wanting to write down his little thought. John, remember how you had described it at the time? He had a little piece of composition in his head. It's like, you know, write it down, something to write with, you know, damn it, you know, I forgot to get those little slips out of the library. You know, paper, what? And it's like, oh, money, you know, money doesn't do any good. It's like, oh, the letters. And he tore that little, you know, maybe half the sheet off because Deasy's, was it letter to the editor, I guess, didn't take it up. And then when Stephen gave the one copy at the newspaper hall scene, and then he apparently did get the one to the literary people that he was talking to AE in the National Library, and that sassy kind of crusty Miles Crawford, like a rooster. He had like a you know, shock of head, like a cap, not cap. What do they call it? Crown? What do they call that thing that a rooster has?
Oh,
you know what I mean? That red thing.
yeah.
That he's like, they've got that red hair kind of spiky. And he's like, you know, so, you know, what's with this letter about the cows? It's, oh, from Deasy, oh, that old blowhard. Was he caught short? Which is an Irish and British Isles slang for, did he go to the potty and not have any paper to wipe his fanny with? So start with the little line, John, and then come around, John, pat me, a voice from the gallery.
It's actually called a comb. What you're
comb, that's what it is. A rooster's comb, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, a voice from the gallery. Moses, king of Jews, wiped his arse on the Daily News.
Laughing is the right response. Go ahead.
Bravely overdrawn.
Beaufoy, you low cad. You ought to be ducked in the horse pond, you rotter, to the court. Why, look at the man's private life, leading a quadruple existence. Street angel and house devil, not fit to be mentioned in mixed society. The arch conspirator of the age.
Bloom.
Oh.
Excuse
me.
Good try, Pat, like I was doing last week.
Bloom to the court. And he a bachelor, how?
First watch. The king versus Bloom. Call the woman Driscoll.
The crier. Mary Driscoll, scullery maid. Mary Driscoll, a slipshod servant girl, approaches. She has a bucket on the crook of her arm and a scouring brush in her hand.
Second watch. Another? Are you of the unfortunate class?
Mary Driscoll, indignantly. I'm not a bad one. I bear a respectable character and was 4 months in my last place. I was in a situation 6 pounds a year, and my chances with Fridays out, and I had to leave owing to his carryings on.
First watch. What do you tax him with?
Mary Driscoll. He made a certain suggestion, but I thought more of myself, as poor as I am.
Bloom, in house jacket of ripple cloth, flannel trousers, heelless slippers, unshaven, his hair rumpled softly. I treated you while I gave you mementos.
No, it's not what. It's not while. I treated you white. Like American slang of that's white of you. You know, I treated you decently. I treated you white.
Smart emerald garters far above your station. Incautiously, I took your part when you were accused of pilfering. There's a medium in all things. Play cricket.
Mary Driscoll, excitedly. As God is looking down on me this night, if ever I laid a hand to them oysters.
First watch. The offense complained of. Did something happen?
Mary Driscoll. He surprised me in the rear of the premises, Your Honor, when the missus was out shopping one morning with a request for a safety pin. He held me and I was discolored in 4 places as a result, and he interfered twice with my clothing.
Bloom. She counter-assaulted.
Mary Driscoll, scornfully. I had more respect for the scouring brush, so I remonstrated with him, your lord, and he remarked, keep it quiet.
Oh, general laughter.
No laughter.
Yes, order in the court. The accused will now make a bogus statement. Look at that. Stay tuned about this Mary Driscoll. You know, I had a position as a serving maid in a place, you know, 4 months I was there and I had to leave because of him. And he did this to me, he did that to me. Stay tuned on this note. And of course, these beginning to get that weird array of people testifying against Bloom. But then he's gotten off, you know, even though they execute him, do all the terrible stuff. You know, and the lady that he was looking at, and these fancy ladies, and Miss Dubida, and these kind of noble women coming in. Where was it? Remember when Bloom was in Davy Byrne's pub, when he got away from kind of horrible and kind of feeling down, and we're like, kind of time for eating, that he might be kind of hypoglycemic. And he's also worried and brooding about Molly. And I better eat something. And when he went in that first grody, stuffier, gorgeous men at the Burton of all the meat and corned beef and spit globs on the floor. And then it's like, oh, go over to Davy Byrne's clean, civil thing. And that wonderful reverie about himself and Molly out on the Hill of Hoth, you know, under the rhododendrons that we've talked about a couple times. Stuck on the pane, 2 flies buzzed, stuck. And then picturing that whole little interlude of their time and lying on each other and, you know, kissed, you know, mouth to her mouth kiss. And you know, just there. And then, there's a reason I'm launching into that. Son of a bitch. Oops. Here we are on tape. Well, they might as well know. There's a reason I did that. Oh, that's really funny. Something about oh, I know what it was. The Miss Dubida and the fancy ladies testifying against him in this trial. And he's thinking to himself, you know, how do these, you know, these restaurateurs and these big bar owners get rich? And, you know, Mickey Cahill, fish seller, you know, can't spell his name without, you know, M-O-I-K, you know, finger in the gill of a fish. You know, can't spell his name without taking half an hour and tongue out concentrating. And he's like, you know, worth $20,000 a year. But he's also thinking it might be kind of nice to be a waiter in a swell restaurant. Not just like, of course, swell, like we'd say, but like swell, toffs and fancy people. Mm-hmm. And he's like, would you like a little more? He's like, it'd be so nice, like pouring wine, looking over the ladies' cleavages. And, you know, and Miss Dubida, would you like a bit more lemon sole filleted? You know, Miss Dubida. And she did, bedad. And that's another of the kind that he's thinking to himself when he's in in Davy Byrne's nice pub having his cheese sandwich and burgundy. So all these things. And, you know, then he gets accosted with that. He gets off. The kisses and Zoe and Bloom start up. Zoe, one of the little prostitutes, and I think this is where she gets his potato out of his pocket. She gets him to give it to him. And then Bloom does that stuff of becoming mayor, the mayor of Dublin, you know, and he gets all of those accolades, remember the thing? And he's got his whole big, you know, Bloomville and, you know, free this, free that, stand up for this, stand up for that. And he's getting all kinds of acclaims at $4.99, and then quickly, I'm sorry, $4.98, and then quickly at $4.99, it starts to segue into some of that, whoa, whirling phantasmagoria stuff in the whorehouse. And it's also at $4.99 where it starts that has Elijah in it and the librarians and stuff from earlier. So come to $4.98 for just a minute and $4.99, and then we'll keep coming further. So, dear hearts, where I'd like you to begin?
498.
498, yes. You know, and all these, you know, all these crazy things coming out. It's like, you know, what's going on? Do this, do that. Fire brigade. And oh, remember, what was it? They had seen across the river Liffey earlier when we were talking last week, kind of like a bright glow in the night sky, and there had been lightning, you know, and the thunder crack earlier, but there's kind of like a bright glow, and they see the fire brigade thundering by, and Bloom's like, ooh, must be a fire, you know, on the south side, you know, on the other side of the Liffey. You know, so let's start to look the sort of drama of all this weirdity. John start at Bloom in a seamless garment marked IHS about halfway down on 498, and we'll go a couple little pages.
Bloom, in a seamless garment marked IHS, stands upright amid phoenix flames. Weep not for me, O daughters of Erin. He exhibits to Dublin reporters traces of burning. The daughters of Erin in black garments with large prayer books and long lighted candles in their hands kneel down and pray.
The daughters of Aaron, kidney of Bloom, pray for us. Flower of the Bath, pray for us. Mentor of Menton, pray for us. Canvas of Brother Freeman, pray for us. Charitable Mason, pray for us. Wandering Soap, pray for us. Sweets of Sin, pray for us. Music without words, pray for us. Reprover of the citizen, pray for us. Friend of all frillies, pray for us. Midwife most merciful, pray for us. Potato preservative against egg and pestilence, pray for us. A chair of 600 voices conducted by Mr. Vincent O'Brien sings the Alleluia chorus, accompanied on the organ by Joseph Glynn. Bloom becomes mute, shrunken, carbonized.
Zoe, talk away till you're black in the face.
Bloom, in common with clay pipe stuck in the band, dusty brogues, and an immigrant's red handkerchief bundled in his hand, leading a black Hogarth pig by a sugan?
Shagan.
What's a shagan?
It's a thing that he's pulling the pig by.
Oh, like a leash? Okay.
Yeah.
While a smile in his eyes. Let me be going now, woman of the house, for all the goats and Connemara. I'm after having the father and mother of the baiting, with a tear in his eye, all insanity, patriotism, sorrow for the dead, music, future of the race, to be or not to be, life's dream is o'er. End it peacefully, they can live on. He gazed far away, mournfully. I am ruined, a few pasties of aconite, the blinds drawn, a letter. Then lied back to rest, he breathed softly. No more, I have lived, farewell.
Zoe, stiffly, her finger in her neck lay. Honest, till the next time, she sneers. Suppose you got up on the wrong side of the bed, or came too quick with your best girl, or I can read your thoughts.
Not or. Oh, I can read your thoughts. Bloom bitterly. Man and woman, love, what is it? A cork in a bottle.
Zoe, in sudden sulks. I have a rotter that's insincere.
I hate a rotter.
Oh, I hate a rotter that's insincere. Give a bleeding whore a chance. Ooh, God.
Bloom, repentantly, I am very disagreeable. You are a necessary evil. Where are you from, London?
Zoe, glibly. Hogs Norton, where the pigs play the organs. I'm Yorkshire born. She holds his hand, which is feeling for her nipple. I say, Tommy Tittlemouse, stop that and begin worse. Have you cash for a short time? 10 shillings?
Bloom smiles, nods slowly. More, Horry, more.
Zoe, and Moore's mother. No, and Moore's
mother? Yeah.
She pats him offhandedly with velvet paws. Are you coming into the must room to see our new pianola?
Music room. But I like Musk. Music room to see our new pianola.
Oh, my eyes.
Yeah, you're doing fine. You're doing great.
Come and I'll peel off.
Bloom, feeling his occiput dubiously with the unparalleled embarrassment of a harassed peddler gauging the symmetry of her peeled pears. Somebody would be dreadfully jealous if she knew. The green-eyed monster, earnestly. You know how difficult it is. I needn't tell you.
Zoe, flattered. What the eye can't see, the heart can't grieve for. She pats him. Come.
Bloom, laughing witch, the hand that rocks the cradle.
Zoe, baby.
Bloom, in baby linen and peluse, pig-headed, with a cowl of dark hair, fixes big eyes on her fluid slip and counts its bronze buckles with a chubby finger, his moist tongue toiling and lisping, 1, 2, tlee, tlee, tlu, tlon.
The buckle, love me not, love me.
Zoe, silent means consent. With little parted talon, she captures his hand, her forefinger giving to his palm the pass touch of secret monitor, luring him to doom. Hot hands, cold gizzard. He hesitates amid scents, music, temptations. She leads him toward the steps, drawing him by the odor of her armpits, the vice of her painted eyes, the rustle of her slip in whose sinuous folds lurks the lion reek of all the male brutes that have possessed her.
The male brutes, exhaling sulfur of rotten dung and ramping in their loose box, faintly roaring, their drugged heads swaying to and fro. Good! Zoe and Bloom reach the doorway where two sister whores are seated. They examine him curiously from under their penciled brows and smile to his hasty bow. He trips awkwardly.
So let's just pause here and then go on. It's like the little whorehouse stuff going on. And, some of the little notes echo things we might notice or might have encountered before. And, just kind of hoi polloi talking in this. And Bloom's not dismantling in a big way now. We'll see. And the big horror show has not happened yet, but we're getting in there. And then there's that fairly large passages, 6-7 pages of Bloom and his father, Virag, what is it, Rudolph the Elder, young Rudy's namesake. And for Bloom to be in a place like this, we'd seen the confrontation earlier, and it's getting uglier because he's deeper in it. And again, as you guys and Alex were well saying tonight, and Jerry when she was with us last week too, the sort of guilts and griefs and kind of trying to assert or hold to yourself as one matures, and differentiates and separates, but then the old sort of blood ties and claims and kins. Mm-hmm. And, we know that Mr. Virag, his father, committed suicide, coming up on the anniversary of it down at the hotel that he ran in Ennis. And it's like, God, what kind of grief, and, one never knows what was at work, but the survivors are left. And Mr. Virag's aggression and the kind of sort of supernatural ugliness of it, again, kind of like the Fellini Satyricon happening. Mm-hmm. And then it segues on into, there's the little place, crack about Stephen, and then I'll bounce us a little bit. Well, then I'll ask you what you want to do. But come to 517, if you would, for a second, my dears. So come on to 517, at the bottom third or so, if you would please, John, that begins Henry, and all of those back and forth had been going on with Bloom and his father's spirit, like Hamlet. Please.
By the way, what's a dulcet voice?
Soft and sweet.
Okay.
Dulce in Latin means sweet. You probably actually have run into it in another setting or sort of know the phrase or have heard it. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. It is sweet and proper. It is right and proper to die for one's country. Yeah, so and actually, let me just put this in our ears and then head down to the Virag down there. At the very top, again, this ouchishness and aggressiveness and creepiness from Mr. Virag and Bloom in this. Virag, His face impassive, laughs in a rich feminine key. Splendid. Spanish fly in his fly, or mustard plaster on his dibble. He gobbles gluttonously with turkey wattles. Bubbly Jack, where are we? Open sesame, cometh forth. He unrolls his parchment rapidly and reads, his glowworm's nose running backward over the letters which he claws. It would be like, of course, looking at Torah and reading, each of the passages that each.
Where are you anyway? Where are you?
Very top of 516. I'm sorry, I tricked you guys. I'm actually going to have us start a little run at the bottom of 516, but I realized how unsettling is this little paragraph at the top. So it's the big paragraph at the top, Pat, on 516. And so I'm about halfway through it. Stay, good friend. I will bring thee thy answer. Red Bank oysters will shortly be upon us. I'm the best to cook. Those succulent bivalves may help us, and the truffles of Perigord. Tubers dislodged through Mr. Omnivorous Porker were unsurpassed in cases of nervous debility or virigitis. Though they stink, yet they sting. He wags head with cackling raillery. Jocular, with my eyeglass in my ocular. It's like, yike. And now, John, go to, and wait. Remember who Red Bank oysters had been associated with earlier. We had been eating all those Red Bank oysters.
I forget. It's in the tip of my tongue, but I remember it.
It's blazes.
Blazes.
And of course.
Because it's a aphrodisiac.
Exactly. And yeah, so at the bottom of 516, take it up. I'm sorry, what did you say, John?
I see he's a nasty bit of work, that blazer.
He is, yes, indeed he is. And it's like, then creepy is like, in Bloom's head, really happening, give and take. Oh gosh. Please, John.
Henry, in a low dulcet voice, touching the strings of his guitar.
Wait a minute, bottom of 516, sweetie.
Oh, I thought you want me to.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You are exactly correct. I'm so sorry. I confused myself. You're right. Okay. Henry in a low dulcet voice. Sorry.
There is a flower from Bloometh, Virag, trunculate, his jowl set, stares at the lamp. Grave Bloom regards Zoe's neck. Henry Gallant turns the pendant dewlap to the piano.
I don't know where you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Very bottom of 517. I'm sorry, Pat. Very bottom, Stephen to himself. Bottom of 517.
Yeah, to himself. Play with your eyes shut. Imitate Pa. Filling my belly with husks of swine. Too much of this. I will arise and go to my. Expect this is the Steve, thou art in a parlous way. Must visit old DC, must telegraph. Our interview of this morning has left on me a deep impression, though our ages. We'll write fully tomorrow. I'm partially drunk, by the way. He touches the keys again. Minor chord comes now. Yes, not much, however. Almidano Arifan holds out a baton roll of music with originous mustache work. This is just craziness.
Well, it isn't. Almidano Artifoni is his Italian teacher. And also remember, he's got like a music teacher and an Italian teacher. And then this, pulls out like a rolled up music with vigorous mustache work. It's like, I don't know, picture, what is it? Like Charlie Chaplin using his face with his little mustache. Yes, exactly. Do you see John? Do it again. Or in the old Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons, there was a little character that would use his mustache expressly those ways. It is nuts, but Artifoni, ci rifletta, le rovina tutto.
Flory, sing us something. Loves old sweet song.
Stephen, no voice. I am a most finished artist. Lynch, did I show you this letter about the lute?
Flory, smirking, the bird that can sing and won't sing. The Siamese twins, Philip drunk and Philip sober, two Oxford dons with lawnmowers, appear in the window embrasure. Both are masked with Matthew Arnold's face.
Philip sober. Take a fool's advice. All is not well. Work it out with the butt end of a pencil. Like a good young idiot, £3 12 you got, 2 notes, 1 sovereign, 2 crowns, if youth but knew. Moonies and villain, Moonies Sir, the Moira, Larchets, Hollis Street Hospital, Berks. I'm watching you.
Philip drunk impatiently. Bosh, man, go to hell. I paid my way. If I could only find out about octaves, reduplication of personality. Who was it told me his name? His lawnmower begins to purr. Aha, yes, Zoe Musas Agapo. Heaven knows I was here before. When was it not Atkinson, his card I have somewhere? Mac somebody, unmac I have it. He told me about it. Hold on, Swinburne, was it? No.
Thank you. Flory, and the song?
Stephen, spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Glory, are you out of Maynooth? You're like someone I knew once.
Stephen, out of it now. To himself, clever. Let's pause here for a second then. You know, when Stephen started at the place, you know, Henry, there is a flower that bloometh, and cut to Stephen, to himself, play with your eyes shut. Sits down, he's sat down at the piano, at the pianola. Play with your eyes shut. Imitate Pa, filling my belly with husks of swine. Too much of this. I will arise and go to my, it was like, when Buck had come out on the tower at the very opening of the Ulysses, you know, stately, plump Buck Mulligan came from the stairhead, bearing in his hands a bowl on which a mirror and razor lay crossed. He blessed thrice, you know, and starts with the introibo ad altare Dei. And, you know, everybody with Catholic or Episcopalian background is like, yike, you know, black mass kind of thing happening. So too much of this, imitate Pa, filling husks of swine like the prodigal son. Too much of this. I will arise and go to my, the introibo ad altare Dei is the Latin for I will, you know, get up and go to the altar of my God. And also the I will arise and go to, folks' ears might be caught, is the opening of the wonderful poem of Yeats's of the Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin have there of beans and wattles, 9 bean rows of clay and wattles made. And it said, now look at this. Expect this is the, what, end? Steve, thou art in a parlous way, talking to himself. Picture, of course, what the word parlous means or is kind of slang for. It's actually American slang.
It's a lot of talk.
Oh, that's in it, yeah. Lots of talking a lot. That's absolutely true from the roots. And it's also a kind of a, oh, I fear thou art in a parlous state. It's like a contraction of perilous also. Yeah, talking, as you're right, Pat. Must visit old Deasy or telegraph. Our interview of this morning has left on me a deep impression. Though our ages will rightfully, I'm partly drunk with it, minor, you know, it's like, you know, he's like, I remember Deasy had said, I think you will not be long here in this school. You know, you are not a teacher. And Stephen had said, a learner rather. And, you know, Deasy even asked, and what more will you learn here? I was like, he's not going back. And that element of, walking out of the tower, you know, they're going to ask for the key. They're going to want the big key to the Martello Tower. It's like, you know, I pay the rent, you know, and they're going to, and Buck does ask for it. It's like, you know, here I will not come tonight. Here I will not return tonight. Home also I cannot go. And it's like, stay tuned with this sort of lostness and wanderingness. Now come forward to, I think probably this will make you happy, and can start to sort of take us toward coming out the backside of the worst horror of the debasement and humiliation and masochism and sadism of Bellow and Bloom. And you know, that little note that I had struck earlier of Bloom in the midst of his degradation, thinking that he hears heavy footsteps. If it were he, you know, and didn't go or come here after. And remember also that funny, awful little, oh, what would you say, little cascade of dread that Mr. Bloom had thought about way earlier when we were reading and talking last quarter, thinking about the man advertising for treatment for venereal diseases by writing ads for it on the wall, essentially, of the urinals. They call them the greenhouse. And that funny bit of business, post no bills, you know, post 110 pills, erasing the diagonal. And then he's like, would he? No, it couldn't be. No, he wouldn't. Oh, you know, out. And of course, when we looked at that at the time, almost certainly what has bubbled up into Bloom's thought or imagination when he's looking at the ad for the venereal disease treatment.
That what's his name was having an affair with Molly.
With Molly, and might have given, yeah, and might have infected her.
Yeah.
And he's like, no. Oh, but what? No. And it all, like, picture the amazing ear and construction that Joyce does to with just those little tag 2-3 syllable sentences of question and answer, convey that whole chain of what we three just said in a paragraph of complete sentences, you know, and how natural toward a human. It's like, is it he? It's like, you know, is he? Did he not go? Is he late? Back when he was in the Ormond, hearing him in there drinking his slow gin, and it's like, is he toying with her? And it's like, is he coming here after? You know, need a little dessert. What'd you say, Pat?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I'm sorry, I heard your voice. So come forward. Oh, what I'm proposing, and I suspect you probably won't begrudge it. There is such power, but also such horror in the degradation passage of 6 or 7 pages. I'm proposing that we not read it aloud, because we did read it, and we can if you want to. But I'd like to get us back toward the crisis with Stephen and when the thing begins to be re-resolving. What do you think?
Sure.
Or would you like to read a little horror together? I'm game either way. What's your druthers, lady and gentleman? Lady of the house? I just realized one of the passages you read for us, Joyce, was among this phantasmagoria, completely echoing and imitating the sound of John Synge's language in his plays, you know, and we were waiting there for Pike to be, you know, expecting at any moment a baiting, and you read a baiting, it looks like, but it's a Irish slangy sound of bait for beat. So, read smut, not read smut. Talk to me.
Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice.
You're the dealer.
What about you, Pat?
Do they still think that he might be a priest, or that he's going?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. In effect, you're sort of asking, is the question sincere, right? Or do they really think it? Couple of layers where that line, where that question reads, you know, what's the stuff, you know, I'm a most finished artist. Lynch, did I show you that letter about and Flory? This is on 518. The bird that can sing and won't sing. And the song, you know, he's sitting down at the piano. Stephen says, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Of course, where does that line come from? What does it mean? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak in its classical sense.
I don't remember, but
What would you say, John?
It's like you're not wanting to give in, but yeah, you give in. Behaving
rightly, you know. I think it's St. Paul. And he actually may be talking about himself, now that I think about it. But it's like, you know, my intention is good, but the flesh is weak. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Are you out of Maynooth? You're like someone I knew once. Out of it now. To himself. Clever. So layer a couple of things, Pat wondered. It's like, is he a priest? Do they think he's a priest? You know, we know in portrait that he...
Out of Maynooth.
And Maynooth is a seminary.
That's a seminary.
Yeah, absolutely right. And so layer those couple.
It's a Jesuit
Yes, it's a Jesuit seminary. You know, just a little bit outside of Dublin. It's very fun. You know, I think we laughed and I've talked that I graduated as an undergrad from St. Mary's at Notre Dame. And St. Mary's, you know, Year Abroad program is housed in Maynooth. Isn't that a hoot?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so also picture how Stephen is talking. And he's kind of dour and subdued and kind of sardonic and timid in his seeming. And he's, you know, what about the song, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak? And how is he dressed?
In black.
In black. He's in a black suit.
They're both in black.
And say it again?
Bloom's in black too.
And Bloom is also in black. You know, when they say, you know, are you together? You know, or like, who's that priesty looking fellow about Stephen? But it could well have been said about Bloom too. And even in the world and the development of a Jesuit and their training, Pat, as you're wonderfully raising, if they were fully ordained and into the order, much of the time, most but not all, they would wear the soutane, the sort of beautiful sort of, you know, low shin length long gown, but they're wearing dress pants under it. But both, you know, very big Jesuits in the world will wear the collar, but they'll wear a nice suit. But also, what are they? I forget if it's novitiates. I forget the level. When the younger men, the Jesuits in training, are going, they're not called father. They're not ordained yet. They're called Mister, you know, by their students or whoever, and they wear black suits with white shirts and ties. Blessedly, they're not short sleeves, so they don't look like goddamn Mormons. But but it's like Book of Mormon. It's like, oh my God, just seeing those posters makes me itch. But yeah, and so he's seeming kind of a prude and a Pringle over there. So she's just like, you know, you seem like that, and you seem like somebody I knew who was in, you know, and of course picture this, you know, somebody I knew from my childhood, or some priest or seminarian who's come into the whorehouse. Imagine that, right? Yeah, nicely asked, Pat. So come forward to Stephen beginning to get in his crisis.
Okay.
It's after the harrowingnesses of Bellow and Bloom and their reversals. Excuse me.
Let's see, the 539.
Yeah, 550.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
You know, where's all the mess? Bloom begins to recohere, asks for his potato back. And Stephen is also sort of recohering some, and then his frenzy and the terrifying vision of the mother comes. So let's look, where's our timing? Oh, good, we have almost half an hour. Yay! Oops, come to, if you would, dear hearts, Bloom recohering around 554, 555. And then we'll take it on in further. 554, 555. Sorry. And Bloom's starting to recohere. Bellow. Yeah, the coming out of the bellow.
554 at the top there.
Yeah. And so remember, this is quite wonderful. As Alex was noting, the kind of high pitch, you know, like hysteria, you know, I don't mean funny, hysterical, the horror and the dread and the ugliness and the sexual things that are happening are so awful in it. And then it segues back out. And then Bella is Bella again with an A. And Alex, having mentioned it, kind of segues not real noticeably. And then there it is. And I'm recognizing, as I'm just kind of stepping back through the pages, the name, the character Bellow had ceased being used around 10 or more pages earlier. And the yous and the sluts and the various other personages or, you know, objects like trees, like the yew trees, like the wreaths, Pat, you were talking about earlier, are interacting. But so come to the bottom, actually, Ha 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 ha. Sorry. Come to the top of 552 and we'll take it on out to the recohering, and then we'll head forward to Stephen's freaking out. So at the very top, my dears, of 552, John, will you start with the voice of Zoe, please?
The voice of Zoe from the thicket came from a hot place.
And the voice of Virag, a bird chief, blue streaked and feathered in war, panoply with his assegai straggling crane back. I can do this. Through a crackling canebrake over beech mast and acorns. Hot, hot, where Sitting Bull?
Bloom, it overpowers me, the warm impress of her warm form. Even to sit where a woman has sat, especially with divaricated thighs, as though to grant the last favors, most especially with previously well uplifted white sateen coat pants. So womanly full, it fills me full.
The waterfall. Filla, fulla, filla, foca, filla, foca, filla, foca.
The ewes.
I got that right.
You did it nicely.
The ewes. Shh, sister, speak.
The nymph, eyeless, in nun's white habit, coif and huge winged wimple, softly, with remote eyes. Tranquilla convent, Sister Agatha. Mount Carmel, the apparitions of Knock and Lourdes. No more desire. She reclines her head, sighing, only the ethereal, where dreamy, creamy gull weighs o'er the water's dull. Bloom half rises, his back trousers button snaps.
The button.
Nice.
Two sluts gonna be danced randomly by shawl yelling flatly.
Keep going.
No,
You.
you. I'm sorry to tell you it's you, the sluts.
The slut.
Avoidance will do you no good, Pat
The
Alberding.
slut. Oh, Leopold lost the pin of his drawers. He didn't know what to do to keep it up, to keep it up.
Right? Bloom, coldly, you have broken the spell, the last straw. If there were only ethereal, where would you all be, postulants and novices? Shy but willing, like an ass pissing.
The ewes. Their silver foil of leaves precipitating their skinny arms, aging and swaying deciduously.
The nymph, sacrilege, to attempt my virtue. A large, moist stain appears on her robe. Sully my innocence. You are not fit to touch the garment of a pure woman. She clutches in her robe. Wait, Satan, you'll sing no more love songs. Amen, 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 amen. She draws a poniard and, clad in the sheath mail of an elected knight of 9, strikes at his loins. Necum.
Bloom starts up, seizes her hand. Oi, Nebracata, cat of 9 lives. Fair play, madam. No pruning knife. The fox and the grapes, is it? What do we lack with your barbed wire? Crucifix not thick enough? He clutches her veil. A holy abbot you want, or Brophy, the lame gardener, or the spoutless statue of the water carrier, or good Mother Alphonsus, Reynard?
Oh, sorry. The nymph, with a cry, flees from him unveiled, her plaster cast cracking, a cloud of stench escaping from the cracks. Polly!
Bloom falls after her, as if you didn't get it on the double yourselves. No jerks and multiple mucosities all over you. I tried it. Your strength, our weakness. What's our stud fee? What will you pay on the nail? You female dancers on the Riviera, I read. The fleeing nymph raises a keen. "Ah, I have 16 years of black slave labor behind me. And would a jury give me 5 shillings alimony tomorrow, eh? Fool someone else, not me," he sniffs. "But onions, stale, sulfur, grease." The figure of Bella Cohen stands before him.
Bella, you'll know me the next time.
Bloom, composed, regards her. Passe, button dressed as lamb, long in the tooth and superfluous hairs, a raw onion the last thing at night would benefit your complexion. And take some double chin drill. Your eyes are as vapid as the glass eyes of your stuffed fox. They have the dimensions of your other features, that's all. I'm not a triple screw propeller.
Bella, contemptuously. "You're not game, in fact. Her sow cunt barks.
Yike.
Fracks."
Bloom, contemptuously. Clean your nailless middle finger first. The cold spunk of your bully is dripping from your coxcomb. Take a handful of hay and wipe yourself.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's right.
Bella, I know you canvasser, dead cod.
Bloom, "I saw him, keeper, and Greek vendor."
Bella turned to the piano. Which of you was playing the Dead March from Saul?
Zoe. Me, mind your cornflowers. She darts to the piano and bangs chords on it with crossed arms. The cats ramble through the slag. She glances back. Huh? Who's making love to my sweeties? She darts back to the table. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is my own.
There's a deal.
Kitty disconcerted, coats her teeth with a silver paper. Bloom approaches Zoe.
Bloom, gently. "Give me back that potato, will you?"
Zoe, forfeits. A fine thing and a superfine thing.
Bloom with feeling. It is nothing, but still a relic of poor mama.
Zoe, "Give a thing and take it back. God'll ask you, where is that? You'll pay, you don't know. God'll send you down below."
Bloom, there is a memory attached to it. I should like to have it.
Stephen, to have or not to have, that is the question.
Zoe, "Here." She holds up a wreath of her slip, revealing her bare thigh, and unrolled potato from the top of her stocking. "Those that hide knows where to find."
Bella frowns. Here! This isn't a musical peep show. And don't you smash that piano. Who's paying here? Oh, sorry. She goes, I get engrossed and I stop to think. Fatal. That's how I flunked the typing test when I came here. She goes to the pianola. Stephen fumbles in his pocket and, taking out a banknote by its corner, hands it to her.
Stephen, with exaggerated politeness. This silken purse I made out of the sow's ear of the public. Madam, excuse me. If you allow me, he indicates vaguely Lynch and Bloom. We are all in the same sweepstake, Kinch and Lynch. Don Se Bedell, Lieutenant, I cannot. Lieutenant Notre Attaque.
We can translate it later when we do it. So these interactions in the parlor and Bella turning back into Bella and Bloom getting more assertive.
Mm-hmm.
And, the interaction with Stephen and the getting back his potato. He asks for it very levelly and courteously, but firmly, and gets it. And then the thing is accelerating into around 574. Let's put part of this in. How's our time? Good. Almost 20 minutes, 18 minutes. Come to 574, dears. Pat, I'm sorry, are we starting to say something, sweetie?
No, I just wanted to know the page.
That's a reasonable question. One can only hope to have a few sure, clear utterances, right?
Yeah, 574.
574. Oh, this is good. And here we're getting our private car and private Compton. And, and Sissy Capri, I don't know. But there's the place. Just a second. Wow. Oh yeah, here we go. Come to come to the very top of no, the bottom third of 573, and then we'll head on in. This is where this apparition of Garrett Deasy, the old crusty, very fascistic, very anti-Semitic, very north of Ireland, Ulster, orange, and Ulster will fight, and Ulster will be right. All the stuff, all this big description of the green jacket, orange sleeves, Garrett Deasy, up gripping the reins. So then, John, start at the bottom third of 573, the orange lodges, and we'll go whirling around for a bit.
The orange lodges, jeering. Get down and push, mister. Last lap. You'll be home tonight.
Pat?
Garrett Deasy. Oh, bolt upright. His nail-scraped face plastered with postage stamps, brandishes his hockey stick, his blue eyes flashing in the prism of the chandelier as his mount lopes by at a schooling gallop. Per vias rectas, a yoke of buckets, leopards all over him, and his rearing nag, a torrent of mutton broth with dancing coins of carrots, barley, onions, turnips, potatoes.
The green lodges. Soft day, Sir John. Soft day, Your Honor. Private car, Private Compton, and Sissy Caffrey pass beneath the windows, singing in discord.
Stephen. Hark, our friend noise in the street.
Zoe holds up her hand. Stop.
Private car, sorry, it comes into the next characters, Pat. Private car, Private Compton, and Sissy Caffrey. Yet I have a sort of Yorkshire relish for...
Zoe, that's me, she clasps her hands. Dance, dance. She runs to the pianola. Who has 2 pence?
Booming. Who?
Lynch, handing her coins. Here.
Stephen, cracking his fingers impatiently. Quick, quick, where's my auger's rod? He runs to the piano and takes his ash plant, beating his foot in tripudium.
Zoe turns the drum handle. There. She drops 2 pennies in the slot. Gold, pink, and violet lights start forth. The drum turns purring. Low hesitation. Waltz. Professor Goodwin, in a bow-knotted periwig, in court dress, wearing a standard Inverness cape, bent in two from incredible age, totters across the room, his hands fluttering. He sits tinily on the piano stool and lifts and beats handless sticks of arms on the keyboard, nodding with damsel's grace, his bow knot bobbing.
Zoe twirls around herself, heel tapping. Dance! Anybody here for there? Who'll dance? The pianola with changing lights plays in waltz time the prelude to My Girl's O Yorkshire Girl. Stephen throws his ash plant on the table and seizes Zoe around the waist. Florrie and Bella push the table toward the fireplace. Stephen, arming Zoe with exaggerated grace, begins to waltz her around the room. Her sleeve, falling from gracing arms, reveals a white flesh flower of vaccination. Bloom stands aside. Between the curtains, Professor McGeaney inserts a leg on the toe point of which spins a silk hat. With a deft kick, he sends it spinning to his crown and jaunty-hatted skates in. He wears a slate frock coat with claret silk lapels, a gorget of cream tulle, a green low-cut waistcoat, stock collar with white kerchief, tight lavender trousers, patent pumps, and canary gloves. In his buttonhole is a dahlia. He twirls in reverse directions a clouded cane, then wedges it tight in his oxter. He places a hand limply on his breastbone, bows and fondles his flower and buttons. I bet he does. Go ahead, please, John.
Magini.
Magini. The hard G.
Motion, art of calisthenics, no connection with Madame Leggett Burns or Livingstone's. Fancy dress balls arrange deportment. The Katie Lanner steps. So, watch me, my Treptocorean abilities. He minutes him forward 3 paces on tripping bee's feet. Tout le monde avance, reverence, tout le monde en place. The prelude ceases. Professor Goodwin, beating vague arms, shriveled shrinks, his live cape falling about the stool. The air and firmer waltz time pounds. Stephen and Zoe circle freely. The lights change, glow, fade, gold, rose, violet.
The pianola. 2 young fellows were talking about their girls, sweethearts they left behind. From a corner, the morning hours run out, gold-haired, slim, and girlish blue, wasp-waisted with innocent hands. Nimbly they dance, twirling their skipping ropes. The hours of noon follow in amber gold, laughing, linked, high hair combs flashing. They catch the sun in mocking mirrors, lifting their arms.
Magini, clip-claps, gloves, silent hands. Carré, avant deux, breathe evenly, balance. The morning and noon hours waltz in their places, turning, advancing to each other, shaping their curves, bowing vis-a-vis. Cavaliers behind them arch and suspend their arms, with hands descending to, touching, rising from their shoulders.
Hours. You may touch my
Cavalier, may I touch your?
Hours, oh, but lightly.
cavaliers. Oh, so lightly.
Nice.
The pianola. My little shy little lass has a waist. Zoe, excuse me, Zoe and Stephen turn boldly with looser swing. The twilight hours advance from long land shadows dispersed, lagging, languid-eyed, their cheeks delicate with cypria and false faint bloom. They are in gray gauze with dark, fat sleeves that flutter in the land breeze.
Magini, avant, oui, traversez, salut, corps de main, croisez. The night hours steal to the last place. Morning, noon, and twilight hours retreat before them. They are masked with daggered hair and bracelets of dull bells. Weary, they curchy under veils.
The bracelets. Hi ho, hi ho.
Zoe, twisting her hand to her brow. Oh,
Magini, le terroir, chandedem, la corbeille, dos à dos. Arabesquing wearily, they weave a pattern on the floor, weaving, unweaving, curtsying, twisting, simply swirling.
Zoe. I'm giddy. She frees herself, droops on a chair. Stephen seizes Flory and turns with her.
Magini, boulanger, les ponts, chevaux de bois, escargot,
Escargot.
twisting, receding with twining, receding with interchanging hands, the night hours link, each with arching arms, and a mosaic of movements. Stephen and Flory turn humorously.
Magini, dansez avec vos dames, change de dents, donnez le petit bouquet à votre dame, remerciez.
The pianola. Best of all, barabum.
Kitty jumps up. Oh, they play that on the hobby horses at the Paris Bazaar. She runs to Stephen. He leaves Flory brusquely and seizes Kitty. A screaming bitterns high whistle shrieks. Groan, grouse, gurgling, toss, cumbersome whirligig turns slowly the room, right around about the room.
The pianola, my girl's a Yorkshire girl.
Zoe. Yorkshire through and through. Come on all. She seizes Flory and waltzes her.
Stephen, Pasu. He wheels Kitty into Lynch's arms, snatches up his ash plant from the table, and takes the floor. All wheel, whirl, waltz, twirl. Bluebella, Kitty Lynch, Flory Zoe, Jujuy women, Stephen with hat, ash plant, frog split, middle eye, with sky-kicking mouth, shut hands, clasped hard on the side, with clang, tinkle, boom, hammer, tally-ho, horn blower, blue-green bushers, tops, cumbersome turns with hobby horse riders, with gilded snakes dangled, bowels, fandango, leaping spurn, soil foot, and jail, and fail again.
Thank you, dear. The pianola, though she's a factory lass and wears no fancy clothes, close clutched, swifter, with glare, blare, flare, scudding, they scatloot shoot lumbering by. Barabum!
Tootie, encore, bis, bravo, encore.
Simon, think of your mother's people.
Stephen, dance of death! Bang, fresh barang bang of lackey's bell. Horse, nag, steer, piglings, con me on Christ-ass lane, crutch and leg sailor and cockboat, arm-folded, rope-pulling, hitching, stamp, hornpipe, through and through, barabum, on nags, hogs, bell horses, Gadarene swine, cornean coffin, steel shark, stone one-handled Nelson, two prickies, Frauenzimmer, plum stain from pram, falling, bawling, gum, he's a champion, fuse blue pier from barrel rev evensong, love on hackneyed jaunt, blazes blind, cod doubled, bicyclers, dilly with snow case, no fancy clothes. Then in last, with switchback, lumbering up and down, bump, mash tub sort of viceroy and wren relish, for tub lumber, bumpshire rose, barabum! The couples fall aside. Stephen whirls giddily. Stephen whirls giddily. Room whirls back. Eyes closed, he totters. Red rails fly spaceward. Stars all around suns turn roundabout. Bright midges dance on wall. He stops dead.
Stephen, ho. Stephen,
We'll probably give it a whole lot more than that.
ho.
Good. Better.
Ho!
That's way better. Yeah. Take the third one.
Stephen's mother, emaciated, rises stark through the floor in leper's gray with a wreath of faded orange blossoms and a torn bridal veil. Her face worn and noseless, green with grave mold. Her hair is scant and lank. She fixes her blue circled hollow eye sockets on Stephen and opens her toothless mouth, uttering a silent word. A choir of virgins and confessors sing voicelessly.
The choir, Lydiata Rutulantium te confessorum, Jubilantium te virginum. From the top of her tower, Black Mulligan, in party-colored jester's dress of puce and yellow and clown's cap with curling bell, stands gaping at her, a smoking buttered split scone in his hand.
Wouldn't there just be? Buck Mulligan. She's beastly dead. The pity of it. Mulligan meets the afflicted mother. He upturns his eyes. Mercurial Malachi.
The mother, with a subtle smile of death's madness. I was once the beautiful May Goulding. I am dead.
Stephen, horror-struck. Lemur, who are you? What boogeyman's trick is this?
Buck Mulligan shakes his curling cap bell. The mockery of it! Kinch killed her dog's body, bitch body. She kicked the bucket. Tears of molten butter fall from his eyes into the scone. Our great, sweet mother. Epi oinopa pondon.
The mother comes nearer, breathing upon him softly, her breath of wetted ashes. All must go through it, Stephen. More women than men in the world, you too. Time will come.
Stephen, choking with fright, remorse, and horror. They said I killed you, Mother. He offended your memory. Cancer did it, not I. Destiny.
The mother, a green rill of bile trickling from a side of her mouth. You sang that song to me, Love's Bitter Mystery.
Stephen, eagerly, tell me the word, Mother, if you know now. the word known to all men?
The mother who saved you the night you jumped into the train at Dalkey with Patty Lee, who had pity for you when you were sad among strangers. Prayer is all powerful. Prayer for the suffering souls in the Ursuline Manual and 40 days indulgence. Repent, Stephen.
Stephen. The ghoul. Hyena.
That's good. The mother, I pray for you in my other world. Get Dilly to make you that boiled rice every night after your brain work. Years and years I loved you, oh my son, my firstborn, when you lay in my womb.
Zoe, fanning herself with the great fan. I'm melting.
Florrie points to Stephen. Look, he's white.
Bloom goes to the window to open it more. Giddy.
The mother, with smoldering eyes, repent. Oh, the fire of hell.
Stephen, panting. The corpse cure, raw head and bloody bones.
The mother, her face drawing nearer, near and nearer, sending out an ashen breath. Beware! She raises her blackened, withered right arm slowly towards Stephen's breast with outstretched fingers. Beware God's hand! A green crab with malignant red eyes sticks deep, grinning claws in Stephen's heart.
Stephen, strangled with rage, shite. His features grow drawn and gray and old.
Bloom at the window. What?
Stephen, anon par exemple, the intellectual imagination, with me all or not at all, non serviam.
Florrie, give him some cold water. Wait, she rushes out.
The mother wrings her hands slowly, moaning desperately. Oh, Sacred Heart of Jesus, have mercy on him. Save him from hell, oh, divine Sacred Heart.
Stephen, no, no, no. Break my spirit, all of you, if you can. I'll bring you all to hell. Oh, that said hell, sorry.
The mother,
Yeah, but it is interesting, yeah.
the mother, in the agony of her death rattle, have mercy on Stephen, Lord, for my sake. Inexpressible was my anguish when expiring with love, grief, and agony on Mount Calvary.
Stephen, no tongue! He lifts his ash plant high with both hands and smashes the chandelier. Time's livid final flame leaps out, and in the following darkness, ruin of all space, shattered glass and toppling masonry.
The gas jet. Fling.
Good.
Boom, stop.
Lynch rushes forward and seizes Stephen's hand. Here, hold on, don't run amok.
Bella, police! Stephen, abandoning his ash plant, his head and arms thrown back stark, beats the ground and flees from the room, past the horrors at the door.
Bella screams after him.
Good, good.
Two horrors rush to the hall doors, and Kitty and Zoe stampede from the room. They talk excitedly. Bloom follows, returns.
Let's pause here for tonight. Good jobs, guys. And then this will be quite excellent. Hopefully, at least, I think we know one of the people has to be gone next week, but hopefully some more of our buds will be back. And we'll take our way out similarly of these last 16, 18 pages and talk. And we'll talk back through what we just did tonight with us together, but we can do it that way. Any things you'd like to leave each other with, my dears? Really good job. And really good hanging in there too. It's a tour de force and a nightmare all at once.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, in it, I mean, it's like, whoa. And then just like take a deep breath, step back, a big mug of something good, possibly put a dog on your feet, and get on with it. You can read to Maximus. Pat, darling, have a great week. Anything to put in the hopper, you or John, for tonight, or just off we go?
Yeah, how far ahead do we go?
For next week, you only need to read the next little chapter which is called Eumaeus, and is more straightforward than this by a long shot, and kind of tender. Bloom is trying to take care of Stephen after he rescues him. So we're reading from 609 to 665. It's even a smaller chunk, God be praised. And so we'll put together these last, 16, 18, 20 pages of Nighttown, and Bloom rescuing Stephen with Corny Kelleher's help.
Takes some time to what? I'm sorry.
That's okay, sweetheart, no worries. Up onto page 665, the Cabman Shelter, Eumaeus. And it'll be very obvious when you're at 665 because it's in prose, regular sentences. And then when it starts into the next chapter, it's all question, answer, question, answer, question, answer, like a catechism. So when you see that layout on the page, you know that that's the chapter for the following weeks. Okay?
Is it really dense, like, for those 3 weeks? Because it looks like after that, we only read about 35 pages for 3 weeks.
Yes, and the 35 pages is one sentence.
What?
Yeah, well, actually, yes and no. It's Molly's soliloquy. So I'm giving us 2 weeks, more or less 2 weeks for, sorry. Oh, you can hear me fine. I forgot I got my mic on. Eumaeus is the one little rather regular, relatively ordinary chapter where Bloom is trying to help Stephen and get some food and drink into him because, of course, he's so empathetic and intuitive, and then starts realizing, does he have anywhere to go? It's late at night. He's been punched out and knocked out. He's drunk. He's hungry. He doesn't know, as we do, that Stephen has no place to go. He's elected not to go back to either place. And so he's thinking, it's like, well, maybe good idea, as we were talking a little bit. Millie has gone down to Mullingar to apprentice as a photographer's assistant, excuse me. So Bloom and Molly have a spare room. So you start thinking, well, maybe Stephen could come under the shelter of our roof and have a much safer, better lot. So he actually literally brings them home. So they're in the Cabman Shelter, and a lot of funny and in some ways fraught and in some ways moving, almost kind of haunting exchanges happen, and a couple funny kind of wild ones. And then they just start to leave being in there and start to go walking toward, at the ending of the chapter for next week on 665, they're walking, Stephen and Bloom are walking toward 7 Eccles Street back to his apartment. And then the next 2 weeks in the Ithaca chapter, of course, Ithaca is, Odysseus's home.
Coming home.
So Ithaca gets to be back in the house, Mr. Bloom and Molly's house, and Stephen's there. And so we'll be spending 2 weeks on that. And the question and answers are fascinating and in some ways weird, but you kind of get going in rhythm, and they get a wonderful, funny, satisfying kind of way of telling the things. And we get all kinds of information. And it also gets very revealing and amazingly haunting and kind of funny as well at the ending of the Ithaca section, which is relatively long compared to Molly's. And then the last 2 weeks with Molly's soliloquy, when I was saying, it's one sentence, the upshot is sort of this way. There is no punctuation.
Oh, great.
None. But despair not. You will find this so interesting as you read it, and try to give yourselves room and time and not feeling in a rush. And do as with all of it, but for sure with Molly's, read it aloud. And as you start to read it, you'll sort of notice where the beats are, or where there would be naturally a comma or a period. And you'll be sort of discovering pathways of connecting things and start to hear the voice. You may do that for sure, but you might find this very, very fun and fruitful. Go on YouTube, and Google up YouTubes of people reading all or part of Molly's soliloquy. And you'll find wonderful, interesting things. And so there's so much going on in and with and from Molly and about their whole lives together, and Bloom and Millie and Rudy and other people, and remember, we've laughed a lot over these weeks. All we hear is gossip about Molly from outsiders and many ranges of thoughts and feelings about her from Bloom. But with that last chapter, we'll get her, as it were, in her own words, her own voice, her own body, and it'll be amazing for you. So the Eumaeus kind of helping soothe and try to feed and settle Stephen down that Bloom does in this next chapter at the little Cabman Shelter that's like a temperance place. They have no alcohol, imagine, in Dublin. And so he gets in there to get him to a safe place. So read up through page 665, read aloud if you have a chance, and can't wait to be back with you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for hanging in, guys. Love you lots. See you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Pat. Bye, John. We are now finishing recording.